to our special meeting of City Council March 5th in the Mount Chambers. It is 5:34, and before we start, we're going to have Mr. Draper offer us an opening prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity we have to gather together as a body of elected representatives and staff and citizens of Eagle Mountain City in order to discuss the important issues of how to best run the city and how to help and fund the important essential governmental services. And we're thankful for the opportunity to have this stewardship and for the guidance in the exercise of our discretion and our judgment and making these decisions and in carrying them out. And we ask you to bless us that we will do so in accordance with thy will. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, and I will admit some of my fallacies my faults every single meeting. Focal slips. And tell you that I forgot to tell David Uliberry that I'm asking to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you lead us? Oh yeah, sorry, I did call order now, so we are called order at 5:36.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now that we're going, we call the order at 5:36, and appreciate David Uliberry doing our Pledge of Allegiance. The first scheduled item today, we'll go right to business. Ben, was there any other announcements or items? Nothing. Okay. Our first item for tonight is item 3A, a public hearing to allow input regarding the issuance and sale of not more than $220 million aggregate principal amount of water and sewer revenue bonds, Series 2026, and B, the potential economic impact that the project described herein to be financed with the proceeds of the bonds issued under the Act may have on the private sector. There is a presentation by Kimberly, right? Or is there a presentation? No. Okay. Is there?
Making her say the pledge.
Laura Lewis from Blues Young is here to answer questions.
Okay, so to ask two questions on this item, we have Laura Lewis with us, and for the staff, you've had this in your packet. We'll just go right to the staff. Is there any questions, comments? There's no action on this item. It's for the public hearing. So, is there any comments here? If there's none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:38 and ask if there are any comments. No emails, nothing. Is there anyone in the audience that came specifically to speak on this item? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing at 5:38 and bring it back to the council. Are there any other questions, comments?
I think one thing that might be useful, Mayor, is that there's a lot of people that ask questions and do different things on Facebook, or they'll run into you in the community, and there's a lot of myths and fallacies, literal fallacies, about things like a sewer treatment center, a bond, and I'm just wondering if there's maybe some common misconceptions that we could just address for the residents so that it's not led with fallacies.
Sure. Yeah, Ben or Brad, if you want to tell us, maybe there's 3 items on the bond. Is that what you're asking? There's
that. I also think it was interesting. A lot of people talked about, and I don't know if this was something that you brought up at an event or something, but somebody said something about us being at 100% of our load and thinking, why didn't we plan ahead and do something sooner, kind of a thing. And I think just helping people understand the process that got us to this point, even just a quick 2-3 minute review of that, I think is really useful for our residents.
Okay. Let's have maybe Ben, unless you think someone else is more adequate to just kind of walk us through what it is, or if you think Brad, I'll leave that with you.
Okay.
Answer the question.
Very good. Sounds good. I recognize that there may have been some of these questions, and that's why I wrote the resolution or the memo that I did. And maybe it would be good just to kind of review that memo really quickly.
That's a great idea.
And then if there's any, this doesn't really address why there's a need. Clearly, we know that there's more than 20,000 entitled units within our community that we have a responsibility to provide sewer for contractually. And but I'll defer to any kind of load requirements or where we are at between Brad and Mac. But I'll just review the memo first. So this is a memo I wrote on February 12th, and it just says bound parameters resolution. During the February 17th council meeting, the City Council will consider the passage of the bond parameters resolution for 3 main sewer water projects, which include a new 6 million gallons per day sewer treatment plant expansion, a sewer trunk line project, and a Central Utah water pipeline and booster pump project. A bond parameters resolution begins the public process by which the city shares its intent to move forward with the project and establish the parameters by which the city could move forward to fund these projects through the issuance of debt. For example, it establishes the maximum possible bond amount, the maximum possible interest rate, and the maximum duration of the bonds, etc. In addition, it sets the date of the public hearing on this bond, which is this evening, which will take place on Thursday, March 5th at 5:30 p.m. At this early stage of the project, Eagle Mountain City is continuing to work with its engineering and design team along with its construction manager general contractor, CMGC, to finalize its designs and solidify the actual cost of the projects, which will be completed at a later date. However, certain long lead time items, such as the purchase of electrical transformers and membranes, could and should be ordered early in order to ensure that the lowest possible purchase price is obtained and to ensure that these essential pieces of equipment are on hand to prevent scheduling delays due to equipment back orders. In order to ensure that these hard costs for the long lead line items can be covered by bond proceeds, the city has elected to consider the passage of this bond parameters resolution as at this early stage in the process. By beginning the public process early, Eagle Mountain ensures the lowest possible costs while also allowing the city to continue its design. State statute anticipates that project costs, market interest rates, and project schedules can and do change as the project gets closer to full design. As such, instead of setting hard and set numbers up front, the state statute provides the City Council the opportunity to set parameters or guardrails for which the project can continue, so long as those parameters are not exceeded. And then in parentheses, if for any reason they need to be exceeded, it would require that the city start the public process over again with a new bond parameters resolution. Please note that it is anticipated that the total project costs, interest rates, and bond duration are all anticipated to come in much lower than the parameters set in the resolution. For this, for example, the city will continue its efforts to prepare for a bond rating or financial credit rating evaluation from one of the major bond rating firms such as Moody's, S&P, etc. Based upon the results of the city's credit rating, the final project costs, and the bond's duration, the market will dictate the interest rate for this municipal bond. It is anticipated that this market's interest rate will likely come in significantly lower than the interest rate parameter established in the bond parameters resolution. In addition, the city will continue to work on securing federal and state grants and lower interest rates or zero interest loans, which would, if secured, lower the overall project cost as well. Again, at this early stage, more information is needed in order for us to solidify these numbers. With the passage of this bond parameters resolution, and once all design costs are solidified, Eagle Mountain City can move forward with the issuance of those bonds so long as the terms of that bond are within the bond parameters resolution established by the City Council and the resolution that's considered on February 17th. If anyone in the community, mayor, council, or any member of the community want to learn more about this, I encourage them to get in contact with me and provide my contact information in the memo. And maybe, is it Matt? Would it be Matt the best person, or Brad? Brad, do you want to speak as to why it's important that we start this project sooner rather than later, and where we are with our load and all that?
I think that to be clear, just so people understand, is it's not just one project, it's a combination of multiple projects that lead to the overall project, right?
Correct, there's multiple projects, and I think to say that the city has never had this on the radar or it's not planned is a misconception, because our master plans have shown these projects, and we've known that this wastewater treatment plant is going to need to expand at some point, especially based on the investing results and things that have happened in the community. And so I would point back and say that our master plans have always shown these things. And just as we mentioned in previous council meetings about just the plant specific, originally we brought it back and we were just going to look at doing something that was smaller scale, plant-wise, but just based on, it's not just growth, but making sure that we can have service and redundancy and make sure that everything is operational and we're providing the public with all the necessities that they need. We knew that we needed to move forward with these projects, and we needed to get them completed, and we needed to kick this off and get moving. And so that's why we're here today. Loading is something that's interesting because it's not always just about the gallons that come into the plant. It's not one for one. There's instances where some of the water can come a little bit dirtier or a little bit heavier, and that's the loading, kind of what it equates to. And so we don't just get to measure it gallon to gallon. We have to measure on gallons. We have to measure on intake. And we have permitting requirements and certain things that we have to follow and meet throughout time. And this is a step forward for us to make sure that we can meet those parameters and conditions.
Brad, can you just speak to perhaps the benefit of the type of system, the sewer treatment system that we selected to use, just the little one water that's created from that, and perhaps the opportunity to put that economic benefit
for sure. As it's been previously mentioned, we've chose the MDR system, and the effect of that MDR system is that we can get our water and we can treat it to a type 1 use. And a type 1 use on this water, what it's going to allow us to do is it's going to clean that water pretty well, and we can use it as a reuse component. And it adds more water to the profile at Eagle Mountain, and it gives us an opportunity to expand. We do have return flow requirements, once again, with permitting and certain things that we have to push so many gallons back. But the plan is to try to maximize and make sure that we have the water and we're putting it to best use. And this is an option to do that. One step further is you can actually add other processes. There's an RO process that you can start knocking down TDS and whatnot. And so we're always exploring the next opportunity to maximize our water portfolio, and the things that are going to be best for the residents here in Eagle Mountain.
So I just think that's a really important component for our citizens to understand, is that, it's like, well, why didn't you plan for it? That's what we're doing. That's what we're examining. That's part of why this system has been selected. It's part of why, obviously there's still some hurdles in being allowed to do that from the state, but we're working with them as partners collaboratively to do that. But this is one of the first dominoes to fall to be able to produce that outcome. And that's what you call long-range planning.
One other thing too, to let the citizens know, because I've seen some of the claims of, well, just stop building homes. I think it's important for people to understand that there's entitlements that already exist that we're responsible to provide for. So I think we're like 23,000 something units. That's about an average of what is already out there entitled. And we are required to provide that for them. This enables us to be able to do that. And for future builds that are happening, we can't really just say no more building to people. There are land rights that we're required to protect, that are protected by the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state. So I think people need to understand, this is a responsibility of the municipality to provide this service. And if we don't act in this way, then we will put ourselves in danger of running out of capacity.
One other question that I've seen crop up, people have asked it, is this all because of data centers? And I guess one really clarifying question, on a closed loop system data center, are they producing a lot of sewage? Because it's a closed loop system.
Closed loop, no.
Exactly.
When you talk about closed loop, that's talking about a cooling system. Cooling is zero
Exactly.
sewer. The only sewer that Data Center produces is their restrooms for their maybe 100 employees.
Yes.
It's less than the supermarket.
Right, and that's exactly my point. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I can expand on that. So actually with the data centers that have come in so far, well, at least with Meta, there is a closed loop system. There is a blowback water that we receive from that system that actually lands at our sewer treatment plant. And it's classified as an industrial reuse water. And there's so many gallons that come out. And some of that water is what we're putting to use right now as some of our reuse component. And that's when I talk about RO process or reverse osmosis process. It's to knock that TDS level down, and we could essentially take that industrial reuse, run it through one more process in the plant, and then incorporate that water back into that type 1. And so, like I said, as in the background, we're always trying to evaluate, trying to maximize the usage of the water and the capabilities of the water.
I think the thing that I just want to make sure residents understand is we see people say that we're having to do this because of a data center, or to Councilmember Wood's comment about homes. And the reality of it is we're having to do this because we're a growing city,
Correct.
not specifically because industry that's giving us tax dollars. So thank you.
Thank you. There was 3 comments that I wanted to reply to as well. With regard to Councilmember Wright's comment and the value, the type 1 high quality effluent that comes out of the sewer treatment plant, of course, that's going to be geared up over time, and it will grow as the city grows and capacity will be used up. Right, but at its peak, at 6 million gallons per day processing, that translates to 6,279 acre feet of water. If we were to look at the water that comes out of that and we were able to get the state to allow us to reuse that water, the value of 6,279 acre feet of water times our current rate with Central Utah Water is roughly 141 million. If you look at it compared to the actual water rates today for open, water on the open market being closer to $35,000 per acre foot, that's really roughly $235 million worth of value that will come over time as that water is being produced. So the type of product that you're choosing is the most environmentally sound and creates the long-term revenue stream for the city and reuses the water that's within our valley if we can get the state to approve it. So I want to make sure that the type of sewer effluent is described and talked about. And in some states, though not in Utah, they take it through one more process and make it drinking water quality. We're not quite there yet. Right? We're not there yet. California, Nevada, yes. I have 2 other responses. To Councilmember Wood, to Councilmember Wood's comment about doing this is not because of any other reason than the fact that we do have entitled lots out there. And if the city chose not to, for some reason, decided, hey, we're just not going to do this because we want to stop growth, we would be in breach of contract. And being in breach of contract, we would lose a lawsuit, and we would then be compelled to do this. And if we were compelled to do it, it wouldn't be on our own terms with the planning that we have using sewer rates and whatnot. It would be thrust on us as a judgment on against our property taxes. So that's another thing. And then the third question was with regard to Melissa, who asked about
Data centers. Closed loop system. Water discharge.
I'll come back to that one when I recall.
Do that one.
The third one. And then Kimberly messaged me as well. One of the things we talked about last night with our Citizens Academy is the use of debt. Is debt a good thing? And of course, from a personal aspect, I think all of us work to try to not have debt in our lives. But it's a little bit different on an individual level versus a city level, because on a city level, you have a product that can last 40, 50, 60 years, for which if we would put all that burden on the cost in the back of existing residents, that would be really truly unfair, because it's future residents that are going to enjoy the benefit of that asset over time. And therefore, having a debt instrument or a debt tool to do that allocates the cost and against those who are actually receiving the benefit. And if you live here 20 years from now and you live for a 20-year period of time, you're also helping to contribute towards that cost of that through the use of debt.
I just wanted to, first of all, I'll be recusing myself from this vote. What I'm about to say is more meant to be more educational for the council versus advisory. So I'm not advising on the specific bond. But when bonds are issued, whether it's a corporate bond or a municipal bond, there's a decision whether to make the bond callable or non-callable. Once that interest rate on a bond is set for a non-callable bond, that means that the city is locked in at that rate, like a mortgage, for the duration of the bond until the very end, for non-callable. Callable allows the issuing entity at some point to call those bonds in if, for example, interest rates go down. That may, for the issuer, be financially an incentive to say if rates go from 5% to 4%, that could be a big savings for a city or for a corporation. So as that moves forward, that's just something to consider, what those terms are as you're considering putting together a bond. We have a bond broker that's very capable and knowledgeable. Sometimes those callable bonds will have a little bit more of a premium on the interest rate out of the gate, but if you think at some point rates might come down, then it might be worth the city calling those in and reissuing, not just for this specific bond, but for other bonds in the future. That's always a question that should be considered. Thank you.
Or if you just want to pay it off early because you have financial wherewithal to do that.
And that's kind of what I was going to comment. Yeah, Laura, I'll bring you up, if you were to address that one coming up, the numbers that you just pointed out with the reuse, a lot of questions to Melissa's point are, are rates going up? And obviously we can't answer that, we don't know, but potentially the value of this will return more than the bond even is in the reuse if we get permits and things like that, right? It's a huge win that we could offset. Obviously, a lot of things to get to that point, but that's a great point.
Mostly political at this point with the state of Utah.
Yeah, we're working on that vigorously. So if you want to address
yes, Councilmember spot on. In the municipal bond market, it is quite typical that bonds will be callable 10 years at par, meaning you wouldn't have to pay an extra premium to call them in 10 years. The market fairly, in the past year or so, we've been able to get a 9-year par call. I'm working with a client in Arizona, and they have the potential for a lot of excess revenues that they're pledging. And so they asked us to work with the underwriters to get a sense as to what a 5-year call might be and a 7-year call. But an analysis is that, frankly, it's too expensive for the likelihood that they'll pay it off early. But we will look at all of that as we proceed forward, and it's very good advice. So that you have a sense of that.
Just to be clear, not advice.
Not advice, of education.
Councilmember.
There you go. Yes, okay.
I also wanted to bring up one other thing that Councilmember Clark just reminded me of that Kimberly shared last night with the Citizens Academy, and that is the recognition that the city really does provide a tremendous value to its residents. And when we think about going to the grocery store and buying a bottle of water that might cost $1.55 and recognizing the city provides 1,000 gallons for the same price. And I don't remember if it was exactly $1.55, but it was roughly that number. The city really truly does provide tremendous value. Even in our property tax, our property tax rate right now, the city, for a $450,000 home, the city's portion is about $132, which hasn't really changed at all over the last 20 years.
That's not per month, that's per year.
Per year. And so the city's portion is very small compared to the services that the city does provide. And so we always have to take that into consideration. We always want to be treating the public's dollars as sacred. I mean, we are stewards of the public trust, and so we want to do what's absolutely in the best interest. But that's what local government's all about, is that the public has the opportunity to come in and talk before you and meet with you individually, and there's no better government than the government closest to home.
That reminded me what I was going to say. I hope that the citizens will understand that when we're making these decisions, we're trying to find, number one, the best outcomes for them, the best system that will provide the most advantageous things for the city, but also opportunities for the future. And if we plan for those kinds of things, then the possibility of reuse is a real thing. That's something that we can do. And it does have the capability of generating revenue, which helps us to depress raising things like fees and things like that if we're able to accomplish those things. So we're always trying to position ourselves to be in a place to always benefit not just services, but the pocketbook of our residents. And I want them to understand that as we consider these things, we're looking at all of those factors. What is the greatest benefit to the end user in the pocketbooks as well as the services we provide?
Yeah, I love what came out of that meeting last night that helps people understand how many of us go to the gas station without thinking pay $1.55 for a bottle of water. And the city sells them water for 1,000 gallons for that price. So a liter compared to 1,000 gallons, same money. Yet people like to complain about their water bill. It's quite a value. So I love that. But getting off track on that one. So that's, yeah, is that, we do. Is that it on the bond for now? Other questions I'll answer?
I have a question. So agenda item 3A mentions 220 million, and agenda item 4A talks about 230 million.
So, that's because there's a kind of a refinance.
So exactly, in the world of bonding, you refinance like you would with your mortgage, is called a refunding. And the city's existing debt is approximately the $10 million. And if it is advantageous for us to refund or refinance that debt with the rates that come back, this gives you the flexibility to decide whether you want to refund that debt and roll it into this new debt at a lower interest rate, or keep and maintain what it is today.
And to aggregate it.
Good. Okay. All right, I think that's it on that item. It's not any action required, so we'll move on to item 4A if everybody's prepared. This is a resolution to go out in the city approving the form for preliminary official statement rating to do the sale of the bonds. Is there anything on this one?
I don't have a formal presentation, but just so that you know, the preliminary official statement is what is used to market your bonds to the public markets. We will go through a process of selecting an underwriter or underwriters, plural, because this deal is very large. That official statement, when finalized, finalizing elements will be getting the rating and adding that rating to the official statement. And that would be, so people are sort of familiar with like a stock prospectus. This is much more readable than a stock prospectus, but it still is long and boring, quite frankly. But it's that document that will be used to market these bonds, and you're approving that basic form with your action.
So question on the credit rating. So I assume, does the credit rating only take a snapshot as of what's going on today? Because we have data centers and other like revenue sources that are going to be coming in to help our city be in a stronger financial position. So I assume that a credit rating, is that going to take into account those possibilities?
It looks at some of that. It's a very good, a very astute question, by the way. So we work with the city and gather a whole bunch of data and put together a rating presentation that will be available for you to look at. I think it's a really nice piece of information for you to share with your citizens and that kind of thing. It will focus primarily, it will have some other general information about the city, but it will focus primarily on the security sources for these bonds. So with these bonds, you are pledging to the security water and sewer revenues, which is inclusive of impact fees and your user rates. You're required under the bond resolution to maintain those rates such that they generate enough to pay off the bonds. And if you don't, then the trustee will come charging in and say, you need to either lower your costs or increase your revenues. So the presentation for this particular issue will focus a lot on that, but it will have a lot of other general information. relative to your growth. And as we look at the future of those revenues, they like us to look out 5 to 10 years. So we'll take into account what we, and again, conservatively expect as population growth, as growth in that commercial usage, in addition to the likely need for some rate increases. So they give it in terms of a snapshot in time, and then they do an annual review of that rating to see whether they're going to maintain the rating or increase the rating. So they look at that on an annual basis in addition.
So a follow-up question to that. So if let's say we get bonds that are callable and rates come down,
Yes,
do you look at the credit rating again at that point?
absolutely.
Okay, and if our credit rating improves during that time, that gets taken into account. Okay, that's great.
Yes. So typically, as I indicated, most bonds are callable in 9 or 10 years. The last statistics I read, something like 85 to 90% of bonds are called when they're callable. That's why when you buy a tax-exempt bond, if you buy a bond that's callable, they will price it to the call date effectively because they figure there's a really high probability it's going to be called away from you if you're the bond owner. So knowing that, we certainly watch for those opportunities. I'm working with a couple cities right now refunding some bonds they issued in 2016 and 2017. And as if you were to buy one of those bonds today as an individual, and let's say I'm not projecting or estimating what your rating might be, we have to go through the process. But let's say it's an A+. If you buy those bonds as an A+, and you're just holding those bonds and they don't mature for 9 years, and the city's credit rating gets better, yay you, because now you hold a stronger rated bond, right? And it will be easier to sell in the secondary market if you chose to do so. Also, as you pointed out, if the city's rating goes up on those bonds, when you go to issue additional bonds or we go to refund those bonds, the likelihood, again, if you're under the same yield curve, the likelihood that you'll get a lower rate is much higher.
Go ahead.
Laura, I was just like another education piece here, but can you maybe just talk a little bit about where these bonds actually end up? Who's buying them?
Gladly.
Who are the end users? Are they domestic people in the U.S. or foreign entities? Like, where do those
Yes.
bonds usually?
I don't know of very many that ends up in foreign hands because they're tax exempt. So does it matter if you live in Tokyo that you aren't being taxed on U.S. Thank you so much. You all may or may not remember, several weeks ago I had pneumonia and I'm still suffering with a lingering cough. I sound like I've taken up smoking, but I don't. So the vast majority are held by large institutions, insurance companies, municipal bond funds, that kind of thing. There is when individuals can buy these bonds, they're issued in $5,000 increments, and the vast majority of individual holders buy them through some type of managed account, that some entity will manage their money for them. But it's and this is my world, so I kind of geek out on my kids are like, hold on, this is so boring, right? But when we get to the point of pricing the bonds, the city is more than welcome to, bring her to the party when it's all done electronically. But typically, it would be your city manager and Kimberly, maybe Aaron, that will have access in real time when those bonds are being priced to a system that's called IPRIO, and it's this game day platform, and we get to see the bond orders as they're coming in. And if it's a bad day in the market and they're a little slow, I'm like, if it's a good day and they're filling up really quick, I'm like, yay, because I know we can push them to lower those yields. So it's a really interesting process, and if any of you are interested, I'm happy to have you participate in that. If you don't, at the end of the day, we can give you a list of here's who put in orders, here's how much their orders were for, and then here's what orders were filled.
So this is kind of to help us all too, because we've talked about this for a little while, and you can help educate what it's worth. But that idea of the online wash and sell and that kind of stuff, A while back, we all watched the school district sell a bond. And to Greg's point about the rating and getting the best deal, they took their president and a few people out to New York to the stock exchange and did it in person. And I think they said it saved at least a half or almost a point by being there in person and helping maybe explain that, by the way, we have all this income coming. And yes, we can type up a thing that shows the city's stability, but is there any advantage to doing that?
Absolutely. The greatest bang for your buck there will be, and I'm hopeful but can't promise it yet. I would say 95% of the time or more, we will travel out to the rating agencies. Typically, pre 9/11, that's dating myself. Pre 9/11, all of them, you all always went to New York. That was like the only place they had offices. After 9/11, we all went, oh, this is bad to be so concentrated, and now have offices all over the United States. So we typically, the Western region's covered out of San Francisco. So we'll typically take a contingent of whoever you as a city and Ben and Kimberly decide and go do a rating presentation. I mean, you feel like you're living, what's that movie? Groundhog Day. Because you do the presentation and 2 hours later we march to do the presentation again and 2 hours later we march to do it again. It's like, oh my gosh. But I think there's a lot of value in that. And I would say, like I say, 95% of the time we will do that in person. Occasionally I'm able to get the rating agencies to travel out here. If I can, for this particular issue, I would love them to come out here because
It's a great point to see it.
yes, I mean, this really is a picture's worth $200 million, right? I mean, there's so much to see out here. Every time I drive out here, every time I'm just amazed because I'm old and you may not know it, but I've been the city's municipal advisor since there was 265 people here. I drove out here when it was like a sea of dirt. I mean, a literal sea of dirt. And, to come out here every time and go, oh, look, there's Walmart, oh, here's McDonald's. I mean, it really is very amazing, and just to see your landmass and know how large the city you are. So if I can get them to travel out here in a timely fashion, that's going to be, my hope to do that. Additionally, the other additional thing is for, when it'll be a question we ask an underwriter RFP, is what is their marketing approach? Because I also think there's a lot of value in having investor presentations. I mean, it's one thing I can say that here's the rating report, here's the official document, but those investors might have a specific question. Well, how are you planning on delivering water to 150,000 citizens or whatever it might be in the next 10 years, right? So we try to address all of those, but they might have some particular one that might really get them over the hump to put in an order. So we'll ask that question and field those phone calls in investor calls.
Okay, thank you. So just on that note, and this is why I kind of brought it up here, is to make sure that we handle this procedurally correct, is I know that I've been talking to council, so we might have to travel to this, there's physical impact to that. And I don't understand if that's already built into the price, if there's going to be, if we need a budget for that, or, but I want the council
That
to.
cost of issuance.
I'm sorry?
We can build the travel cost into the cost of issuance of the bonds.
So then in that case, I want the council to make sure that they know that that's the motion. Do we need that in the motion, or what's, I want to make sure that they are approving the travel costs, is what I'm telling you.
We can build that into the motion. I mean, just to include that as an amendment, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to make sure that that's something the council wants us to do, or we do it electronically. It's what I'm getting at, because it does have a physical impact. But I think it's savings, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, like if it's
Turn your mind.
if it's a cost savings to us, which it sounds like it is, it makes sense for us. It's an investment in the process because ultimately that's going back to being a good steward of the taxpayer dollars.
And again, I just want, it is a physical impact, and that's the authority of the council, so I want that to be clear that that decision is being addressed. So, any other questions? If not, this is an action item, so we do need a motion.
I'll make a motion here.
Go ahead.
I move that,
Yeah, I was going to repeat myself, but go ahead if you want to declare that.
What was my declaration is that I won't be.
All I was going to say is when I call for you to vote, or I'll even announce it, you just say I recuse. But if you want to make a statement, that's
Okay, yeah, probably good for the citizens, just to avoid any conflict of interest with my individual clients who may own municipal bonds at some point in the future. I'll just recuse myself from the vote.
Yeah, and sometimes people hear that and like, oh, he's got some, no client currently has any bonds
No.
being on, there's nothing there.
No,
But just to be
more
than
than
transparent,
Yes,
that
absolutely.
you're not going on this because you're in the industry.
That's correct.
So, great, I love it. So, Brett.
first I do want to make a clarification here. On page 37, it says there's going to be some adjustments to that. Paul Jerome's still showing as the deputy city manager, so I think we got to get that right. Let's get Steve in there. I think there's some other changes that probably need to happen. That's the only one that I saw that was glaring. So just make that, if we can make that adjustment in it. I love Paul, and Marcus's name is omitted, so I think there's some changes that need to be made in that section, and they're noted that there will be some changes to that section, okay? So with that, I will, I move, Mayor, that the Eagle Mountain City Council approve the resolution approving the form of preliminary official statement relating, am I on the right? Yeah. Okay, approve the form of preliminary official statement relating to the sale of bonds as presented, item 4A, with the changes just identified, and recognizing that we're including travel costs as determined by the mayor and administration to be able to market that bond at an appropriate time.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Wright, a second by Councilmember Wood. We'll start voting with Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Whiting?
Yes.
Councilmember Wood?
Yes.
And Councilmember Hughes? Recuse. Thank you. That carries forward with one recuse. Next item, we'll move right along, is a discussion item only. This portion of our meeting, the recording will continue, right? Is it?
I think we're going into closed session at this point.
Okay, do you want to do closed session first? So,
And we can get a motion, please. I move that the city council adjourn into a closed session pursuant to section 52-4-2051 of the Utah Code annotated.
Second.
we have a motion by Councilmember Wood, and a second by Councilmember Clark, and we'll start voting with Councilmember Wright.
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Councilmember Hughes.
Yes.
And Councilmember Clark. You say it, Councilmember Clark?
Oh, yes. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. That carries.
My brain
We'll
thought.
adjourn closed session.
Started, I kind of wish we could do all our meetings like this. This is a lot warmer environment. We're going to move on to item number 5. We're back from closed session at 7:09 and back to our regular agenda. And item number 5 is a discussion item only. It is not an action item. It is a presentation of our annual budget. And we're going to go through multiple different things with multiple presenters. So I believe we're starting with Angela. You're first.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk for just a second,
Okay.
and then whenever you're ready, Mayor, for me to...
You conduct from here. I pass the baton. You tell us what we need to know.
Okay. So tonight's purpose, as we're preparing for that fiscal year 2027 budget, is centering around some preliminary personnel discussion items. And our core objective is for the council to be able to identify what some of your main strategic initiatives are. And then as we're identifying these personnel needs, that we can do some ranking to identify which of these are going to help further these particular initiatives. Everything obviously still is contingent upon funding and resources that we have. But the main thing is to just let you know some specific assumptions that we have with where we're at on the personnel side right now. And then to be able to have some discussion with the council as a body to make sure that as we're moving forward that we are aware of what the key goals and things are for the council. Okay, so actually it will start with Terrence and Angela are going to go through kind of our slides and stuff for us. And So we'll just start with that part there. So.
Awesome. All right, so if it's working. So here's some of the key items that we would like to cover for this budget work meeting with you. First is we would like to do a little bit of prioritization activity, which we're gonna use your phone for this one. Hopefully you can all do it, but if not, let me know and then we can do an alternative activity for this one. So pretty much we're gonna talk about some priority areas for you as we prepare for the fiscal year 2027. And Angela is here to cover the compensation plan, benefits, retirement, and we'll have the last discussion on the personal requests that we received for the next fiscal year. If you remember from the presentation from Ben and from our strategic planning and visioning, this is some of the key areas. And as mentioned by Ben, the foundation is public safety, and there are some key areas that needs to be balanced. So there's the economic prosperity, quality of life, and providing essential services. As you know, we have limited funding, so we need to kind of prioritize which of these areas do you think is much more important. As you go through your listening tours with our residents, the feedback that you receive from them, we want you to rank these 4 areas in order, if that's possible. So we're gonna do a Slido one. So you just need to scan the QR code.
Slido, you're getting official.
I know.
That's
So is this elected only or everybody?
So Brett, you use your camera. I know how to do this. This is ULTC stuff, man. This is
I know,
high-tech.
you guys do it for ULC. I was like, we'll do it. You guys have a lot of practice for this one, so let me know if you guys are on the Slido. Only one question. No? All right.
I think it's just the phone.
Okay. I guess you can start it, and then if I move it to the next slide, it'll give us the results. So
So he just wants to pick one of these?
you have to rank them out of these 4 areas based on what you heard from our residents. Which one should? Oh, go ahead.
If you're having trouble with your signal, we can get you
The Wi-Fi.
for you to do your.
With the economic prosperity,
Yeah,
is that it's
property.
it's spelled right. It's alright. I was just gonna let it go. But is that like keeping taxes low? What does that mean? Economic development? What do you classify that as?
Economic prosperity, typically for a city, everything from community and economic development related activities. So it's everything from forming jobs,
I think we're just
chamber,
dry.
to good city planning for future development and whatnot. So economic prosperity is the creation of a good economic base for our community.
So far, we have one participant.
Watching you.
Yes.
From heaven, he's down like, hey Zach, you gonna get this right?
Thinking about it.
What? That's probably me. I'm an overachiever.
What? Oh, that's done?
Now there's 3.
When
We got 3,
Terrence tells me to
We're
do
still
something, I just
trying to
do it.
4.
I don't want to fight him.
Look for 6.
We got 2 more. No pressure.
Wait until there's 7 then.
It's just like, oh, we got a new.
We did it.
There's just the one slide.
Yes, there's only one Slido.
Okay.
And then we'll show the results in a bit. One more.
I didn't put my name in. Do you want me to put my name in now? My company is excellent.
You can just put an X or a.
That one. I voted on one.
Did you hit send? Yeah, he's waiting for. Yeah, we're in.
I got 6.
Okay.
Everyone's good? All right, so what we're going to do next is I'll show you the result. And this is just like a first stab at it. We can talk about it. And then if you agree, we'll kind of follow through. This will help us guide in our budget evaluation of our different requests that we do receive. So this will be very helpful. So here's the results based on the
I want
rank.
to change my answer.
So rank number 1 is public safety, followed by providing essential services. And then rank number 3 is economic prosperity. And then rank number 4 is quality of life. Based on this results, of course, I don't know who submitted them, but we just want to know if you have any questions. Is this
So yes, as a body now, we know like you all rank, how do you feel about this collectively? Seeing it, does it feel in line with what you guys?
I'm shocked the quality of life was at first, because that's like,
They're
isn't
all
that
tied together.
they all fall underneath the quality of life. Like, to me, that seems like the most obvious thing for
I
them.
think that's why it's a little tricky, because I actually voted for economic prosperity, and the reason I voted for that is because if we're economically prosperous, it will lead to a maintaining or improving the quality of life. We can then make sure that our essential services are funded and our public safety. So for me, it's a little bit of a trick question, because none of these are unimportant.
Yeah.
That they're all, what's the key factor that will achieve a raising of each of these areas? For me, that's how I looked
So
at it.
let me
That's
talk
why.
to that point and see if you change your mind, because I think you're right in theory. We're looking for next month, what are we going to fund with what we already have?
Okay, from that perspective, yeah, maybe
So
change
I don't
it.
understand how it
I asked
changes
the
it.
question of myself first, what does the citizens expect?
I think
Of those
they've
four
gotta be
things-
safe first. We've got the priority that they're safe. With the money we currently have, we have to prioritize that they're safe.
Do you think that they want public safety over their quality of life here?
Would you
I
have
don't
a
think
rec
you
center
can
at no
enjoy your
cost?
quality life.
Look,
over-
I'm just saying, the normal citizen, are they going to look at that and say that their number one thing is public safety or quality of life?
A rec
Because
center over a police force?
are you making rec center part of quality of life?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm illustrating what that would be.
So this is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
the quality of
I
life,
agree with
I think the other three things bring a quality of
I
life.
agree with that, Rich.
No, I
That's-
agree with that, but I'm
Isn't
talking
this
about
about
what
the
are we
services we
funding?
provide?
That's why I say it's not clear. I'm
So,
agreeing with
I
what
think
Brett's
that's-
saying.
I think the quality of life, though, isn't that like our community services?
But here, so I think the mayor's asking a different question than I received.
Got it.
That's what I think I'm hearing. I'm hearing the mayor say, next month, what do we want to fund to
So if
achieve
you read the whole
our
question,
stated goals?
right now, as we budget for fiscal year 2027, are we going to fund quality of life initiatives, or are we going to fund
Well,
policing?
how do you separate public safety from
Quality of
essential
life.
services? Because the essential services,
Just
public
private-
safety
Well,
is
one's
one of
flushing
them.
your
Would you
toilet, the
consider
other one's
anything
making
public
sure you're
works?
not getting robbed.
Public services are sewer, water, streets.
I would like to know,
So,
are any of
are
these
we
in
being
dire
more
straits
forward?
falling apart? Well, what's
a
like
good
more
question.
needs-based for me? They're all important.
They are all important. That is true. We're not saying that one
This
should
is
be
fun.
higher than the other, but this
You see what I'm
active.
saying?
Yes. So we can take it. Oh, go ahead. Go
Can you go
ahead.
back to the model?
And the purpose too, just for that, it was just to be able to spur the conversation.
And that's
It's
why I
not
brought
that we're
that up.
saying,
The circle
oh, we
one.
held
So
the
the red
red
diagram.
survey and this is what it is. It is,
So
yeah.
if you look at this model that you've all kind of are working towards, in all reality, public safety
They're all
is your
conjoined.
foundation.
So
That's
what
your
you guys
public-
are saying is this.
We're assuming they're all equally underfunded.
Well, no, but
Right.
this is in the ideal city, public safety is your foundation, but not in the forefront. So you got to have a good, strong foundation of police, fire, EMS, and whatnot to have a good,
Because you
strong,
can't
safe
have the
community.
rest without them.
But then the city
I'm trying to
should,
understand that.
in an ideal city, that's okay. In an ideal city, it's an equal balance of providing essential services, economic prosperity, and quality of life. And when the city is out of balance, then you can say, well, it's like everything is utilitarian. We kick, we're penning everything Battleship Gray. We're kicking out the door. But there's no real reason to live here because we haven't provided a place for our kids to play.
Yeah.
So are we in balance or are we out of balance? That's the
We are
question
out
I
of
would
balance.
ask.
Right now, we are probably underfunded in public safety.
Okay.
No, probably, we definitely are.
We are
The need to have and nice to have. That's what I'm trying to.
we are behind the ball when it comes to essential service for contractual purposes, and we're working on bringing that up. Economic prosperity, we're doing a pretty good job with that, but we could invest more to make sure that we have the
We're behind.
capability of continued advancements going on. And quality of life, we're deficient in. We're significantly deficient.
So yes, we're deficient in all of them, Zach. And that's,
Yes.
And that's why I say for this year, what do we want to prioritize? I think we need that they all come together. But what are we going to fund this year? More park staff or more police officers? But I think we got to balance that with both, but how much?
And I think it really comes down to what are the needs in each of those areas, right? What
So
are they
that's the
asked?
next slide. But this was an exercise to get us talking about that.
Yes.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I also think it's important to remember that certain things can only come from certain budgets. So even if, you know, we wanted to do more quality of life, we can't take sewer and water money from that. So like, there's some constrained things that we won't be able to change because of where their funds come from.
I think the approach is just to be strategic with our limited funding. Try to kind of figure out, yes, all have needs, but out of our limited funding, where do we want to put our resources first? And I'm pretty sure that we will tackle this, you know, area by area. We can in a balanced approach, but we just wanted us to have a discussion to get started of out of
Get the
these
juices
areas,
flowing.
which one is kind of like your top priority for fiscal
So I
year
have a
2027?
question, because economic prosperity seems to me that funds the others, right? So when we're trying
That's why I put it-
to determine,
In the future, but not today. And
well, that's when you're saying putting money towards it, what do you mean by putting money towards
we're talking
economic
about fiscal
prosperity?
year 2027 goals. What are we funding?
No, I understand that. What are you going to use the funds for economic prosperity?
like hiring another
If we're
admin.
weighing those things, what would that be?
So I think that's when we start getting into is where do we prioritize it and can we put a little money in that area? And that's what we're going to get to.
So you're talking like
the
advertising,
report
marketing?
studies,
That's what I'm wondering.
that
Like,
kind of stuff.
because when we're looking at this and you're saying prioritize, well, what do you mean?
And so I think, again, so if I come at it from a budget perspective, again, tonight, when we go forward on this, we're going to be looking at some of the personnel requests that came in. But again, that's only one component of it, and the other
Right.
component is, yes, the actual operations of what it is. So internally, where we're at is we start out with what we call our baseline budget, which is what is it going to cost us to just
Maintain.
keep going with what we have right now, and what is the initial money we think coming in, and can we fund that? Because if we can't fund, and that still might mean it's declining service levels, because we're not talking about adding people yet. We're just simply saying if everybody we have on staff, and of what all of our materials and supplies cost, this is the minimum that it takes us to function. And I do budgeting where we start at the bottom and we add based on our resources, and then we have conversations. Are we willing to look at rates and structure to increase resources in order to bring this up? Versus we put all the asks in and we're trying to cut everything out. To me, we want to start at that foundation and build up, because there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I don't want staff doing a lot of work on preparing things that we absolutely have no money or way to fund or even consider.
So I want to build on kind of what you're saying there, because when you look at it through that lens, the only thing in there that generates revenue is going to be economic prosperity. Essential services, unless we're talking about raising taxes or fees, will support that, right? So economic prosperity is the only way to be able to fund the other ones.
So you're saying you agree with me?
I mean,
So we will
so when we're talking
have-
about
we
that,
do
you can
expect that we'll
maintain,
have
but
some
what is
growth,
going to help us
right?
to accomplish the other goals that are on there? That's probably, I mean, that's not what I put.
Right.
It's a huge priority, and I think the key to that is that we tackle that in our, not our general plan, but our strategic vision. That's more of a long range. We've got to focus on economic prosperity. In the meantime, we're going to fund our essential services. You know, and that's kind of the balance of what I was.
It's really the timeline. I mean, that's what you were referencing, Mayor, is okay, but what are we doing next month?
Yeah, what are we going to fund today, and what do we need to focus on are two different
Yeah.
things. So our focus is our strategic plan. Our funding, fiscal 2027, is different. And to your point, I think with our economic prosperity, and because I spent most of this week fighting fires instead of going to budget meetings, Kim, I pulled out of our, so Kim hasn't heard this yet, but I've talked to a few people about, because we know that in July we're going to start storing data. We know that our budget, even though it's been like this, is going to start to go like this as the budget year goes on towards the fourth quarter, or I'll say first quarter of next year. So one of the things that I've been kind of talking about a little bit with Van and others is maybe we do exactly what Kimberly usually does, is here's what we can afford right now in July. This is our budget. But as we get to October, November, sometimes we do a mid-year hire. I think that we can start ramping up our hiring rather than just twice a year. And it's usually only once a year and then just a small mid-year. that we can start doing maybe quarterly ramps with some of those areas. That's just my idea.
As that revenue stream
As the
starts
revenue,
to produce.
because I think that we can't fund them in July, but we might be able to in November, but I don't want to wait till the following July.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait till January, but we might have another hire in February. So maybe this year it's 3 and next year it's 4, it's quarterly. So my thoughts is as we prioritize these, let's start with, and again, the exercise is great, but let's start with what we have to have, and then let's look at what we need to have in October, November, and then what we'd like to have in January. Or something along those lines. Now, again, I'm just spitballing that out there saying that I think that our projections are going to start looking better. Kimberly always projects very conservative, and it's a good thing she did last year because it didn't go, it landed right on projection. I think our projections can get a little bit looser as the year goes on. So I hadn't told you that I had that idea, but you know that.
Yes, that's exactly why, and that is why we, even last year, where we were looking at what people asked for, everything. If I just preface that, everything that is being asked is already needed today. They were needed years, right? So we will always be behind because of the growth level that we experience at this point. We're always going to be playing catch up, and that's just expected. And then so part of that means we do have to kind of prioritize because all the areas have needs of what are the things. Again, I talk about how the money that we have and what's available determines the speed of which the vision can happen. But we don't want to lose sight and say because we're growing so fast, we don't ever put the vision out there and that we're just stuck in today. This is what we have to do today. We want to make sure we're still having these big level conversations and we don't lose sight of what the vision is as we're going into it. And then yes, as the resources become available, you absolutely can. The reason I had cut back on budget amendments before is because we had gotten to a point where we were having to do budget amendment. I mean, we did like 7 of them or 8. I mean, and to me, we want to be better at our planning and the things that we're doing. That our budgets were so tight, there wasn't room for a $4,000 change, and we were having a lot of things that were coming. So we wanted to look at that structure and to also hold us as staff as accountable of saying, we know that this is a need, but this isn't an emergency and it has to hold off until mid-year because until at least mid-year we don't know that we're going to have more money coming in with some of our key seasonalities and things like that. So those were kind of those targets, but yes, as that revenue stream changes, then so does our process.
So can I ask a question about that, Kimberly? Because I and it's probably just because I haven't paid close attention to this, but I think it would be really helpful to me as a council member to just know that here's what we're projecting and here's what the reality of it is. I don't know that I ever feel like I know what actually happened and if we're on budget. I mean, I think you try to give us what we need to, and I'm grateful for that. I think you're doing a fantastic job. But I just think if we could see that we're outpacing the projections, or man, we're right on the projections. I mean, as the mayor said that, it's like it's like okay, if we're seeing that, and I know that you give us those updates, so I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just wonder if we shouldn't do that more frequently, like quarterly, just a report. It doesn't need to be a presentation, but just a report that we could look at that would give us some idea of we're ahead of schedule, we're behind schedule, we're right on schedule. I think it also enables us to evaluate whether or not we're keeping pace with revenue and if we need to take more drastic measures. Because if we're not following with our needs and what we're actually bringing in, then we have to look at other options that are more permanent, not waiting for the what-ifs to happen, right? I mean, I'm talking about raising taxes.
I think
just so everybody's clear what I'm talking about. But I think if we don't know that and we keep pretending like that's not a reality, then we doom ourselves to fail. Like, we can't have our costs continuing going like this and our revenues doing this.
Along with that, I think it's really useful when you do give us our quarterly update to know what our drop dead dates are to be able to do something. Like, if we do make a change with truth and we need to do a truth in taxation hearing or whatever, that we know, okay, it needs to take place by this date for us to make changes. Because I don't want to make it in a desperate time. I want to be able to plan it out if that's what we need to do.
One other thing I wanted to bring, do we know if that bill passed?
We got till tomorrow.
Can I do a little aside on that?
Yeah.
So
Nothing is truly dead until midnight on Friday.
I'll be there tomorrow.
But as of right now, the property tax bill is dead. It did not pass the Senate. It was 15-14 vote with the Senate president breaking the tie and going against.
Jeez.
So that's where
That's
it
a big
stands.
deal.
Yeah.
So the issue is, what's up?
I wonder how our senators voted on that.
I don't know.
They both
Again,
were
Heidi's,
no.
Heidi's
So I'm
always
going to bring us
working.
back here to try to finish this thought. The issue is
She was
the
one of the ones
league
that was for it in the beginning.
the league was very much of concern that if something didn't pass in an election year, that next year when
It's
nobody
coming
cares
back.
about it, they're going to shove something down our throat.
Yeah.
Sub 3 wasn't that bad. It was going to be hard, it was going to be painful, but it wasn't that bad. It didn't pass, and I'm okay with it because status quo is better for us and everything else. But because it didn't pass, my fear is next year there's going to be something bad. And what's going to be bad, the worst for us, is if they put a 5% cap on it. If they put a 5% cap and your Provo or your Woodland Hills, 5% of a big number is not bad because you can just keep doing cost of living. But because we are so low, 5% of where we're at will always keep us extremely low. So if, I know the council was talking about in the retreat previous, doing a property tax increase. It might behoove you strategically to consider doing a massive increase to property taxes. When I say massive, I say 200 or 300%. 200 or 300% to the actual home is only $200 or $300. You know what I mean? And so it sounds horrible, but is it really horrible in tangible dollars? So there's definitely a communication and story to share. But if the city were to get its property taxes up significantly enough to cover a substantial portion, if not all, of public safety, and you had the wherewithal and guts to be able to do that, because we want to have you still be in office, we don't want you to get shot and killed.
Well, that'll be the
all
end
that
of
kind
it.
thing. But if you took and bit the bullet and had a diversification of that so that public safety was covered with the most stable revenue source, and then the state legislature slammed us in the future, you would set yourself up that you would be able to handle things much better in the future as opposed to something that might come. Now, I don't want to be a fearmonger and all that, but I just want to put that out there that you may want to consider this, because if you only do a step, your ability to take the second step may not be there.
Yeah, but counterpoint to that, if we have to change taxes or do something, it's way easier to explain to the residents, we're doing this because of a choice that the state made, not we're afraid of what the state might do.
Once the state makes that
Once the
It's
state-
too late. You're limited.
I know, but
Once you're stuck at 5%, it's too
The
late.
decision is not about any fear or what will happen. What the council collectively wants to look at is what is the pace that you want
We're behind.
this to grow in terms of the
That's what it
service or
comes
the
down to.
things that you can provide. And again, it can be to wait for the IFCOM, right, of other resources or things like that or whatever. But in terms of my recommendation, in terms of just public safety, of looking at as your core function, right now, again, it is the only thing that we fund with property tax.
I think it's really
But it
important.
funds a very small.
It doesn't even fund it
that is.
completely.
I don't,
It's
what,
not even
Funds less than
25%.
yeah,
30%.
it's
Close
really,
to 30%.
it's really important to remember too that even if we do raise taxes, the residents can always run a referendum, and I can almost guarantee you that that will happen. Because that happened in Pleasant Grove, and they were doing a firefighter and one other like basic essential kind of public safety service, and their residents ran a referendum and then overturned it, and then they didn't get that tax increase.
Melissa, can I
Okay.
ask you, so what's the solution?
I don't
from
know
your
that there is one. I'm
perspective.
just saying we need to remember that that is a very real
They
possibility.
can do that, though. I mean, the reality of it is if we do nothing, it's going to happen. I mean, in an election year, they're all protecting themselves right now. And next year, when that's not the case, I guarantee you, Ben's right. They're going to do it. And at that point, it's too late. How do you fund things then? Because what if our ifs don't hit?
Why would they do it not election year? They would want to do it
Because
on a day
people
where
have
they
a
can
very,
hold it up and
they have
say,
a very short memory.
yeah, but my point is they want to do it on a year where they can say, look, you guys, we kept the cities in check so they couldn't raise your taxes. That's a big deal to them. Doing it on a non-election year isn't.
I think it's a safer move for them to not do it then. So here's the thing. If we are going to make a decision like this, our communication like peace has got to be like the very best forward-facing. We need to lay things out for them as to why we're considering it. They need to understand. We need to deal with the fees that we've raised. Everything needs to be on the table to show them the reason that these decisions are being made is this, this, and this. Your expectations are to have this level of service in each of these things. As a result of that, here's the cost. And we can't be afraid of telling the truth, because Ben's right. If we do it and we look like Davis County, they'll have our heads. And they won't care about the explanation if we don't start having a communication about this now with them and starting to lay out, here are the reasons that we're making the tough decisions. And yes, some of them are because somebody decided not to raise them regularly. And so now we're faced with a huge deficit of service revenue. So we have to make some hard decisions now, but these are the reasons why. And no, we're not funding data centers with it. And no, we're not going to go and build, we're not building a rec center with it. We're not doing any frivolous things. It is public safety, infrastructure.
Well, I think you bring up a good point about the PR campaign. What I was going to say is this body, minus the smartest one in the room that hasn't caught the vision yet, is really good at district split and why we should do it, and RAP tax and why we should do it, except the one that won't.
I'm moving forward. I lost. Let's go.
But I think the key is we
give me a counterpoint to what I'm saying. How do you fund if you don't raise taxes?
We've got to.
You raise revenue.
Hang on, I'm asking.
I think the policy that we've had as a city is a bad policy. People expect for their property taxes to go up every year.
Right.
County goes up, school
and
districts go up.
they have.
I was shocked to learn that our property taxes haven't gone up at all as a city.
Yeah.
Like, why? Just for cost of living, like now we're so far behind. But I think a 300% increase is going to be tough, going from $600 to $800. That's a tough sell. I think you could do like 100.
Yeah, so this is a policy, so you guys got to decide what's palatable. And all I'm saying is, if the ultimate goal is to get 100% of public safety covered by property taxes, how do you do it? Do you do it in multiple steps?
To do that, it would take a 300%.
Well, and do we need to, with what you just laid out revenue-wise, can we land the plane with, can we get along for 6 to 9 months before revenue starts?
My projection, and I don't have the exact numbers, I would need Terrence and Kimberly to kind of help me, because I think in the past we've used, well, this is what we got, and that's kind of our basis. What I want to know is what 100% of what we got, or 300% of what we got gives us this number. What that doesn't reflect is that it's $200 per home, but 30% on a $1 billion building is different than 30% on a home. Even though they're only paying 20%, that number is exponentially larger. So if we raise 100%, even on the 20% of Facebook, what is that number as opposed to just 100% of the total? So because that grows faster than it does, right? The X factor is quicker than.
There's going to be an expectation from the citizens for us to do a side-by-side comparison for
agree.
what we're saying we're paying for. So we are opening ourselves to saying the sheriff's department is this,
yes.
Here is ours. The fire department is this, here's UFA. And that expectation is reasonable.
Right.
Yes.
They're going to want to see a side-by-side comparison to show them that there is a reason to do it, that we can't do it cheaper ourselves. And I think if we don't hide from that and say, okay, all things are on the table, here's what we're evaluating, here's the conclusion that we've come to, tell us we're wrong.
That you may want to have town hall meetings where you
I agree.
explain. You may want to have, I guess what I was going to get at earlier was the other thing that was a poison pill in this was that they were trying to make our fund balance cap to be our our property tax, which would have been 2.5 million. If that's our property tax cap and our minimum is 1.7 million, we would have had nothing to work at, $700,000 to work with on emergency.
I'd like to think my Zoom comment had some influence on the Senate president.
So if we don't raise taxes, and they put that in, that could be a real killer to us too. Now, one last thing to consider. If you do propose a really large property tax cut or increase, and then you listen to the residents and you end up doing it over a 3-year period, you, one, look like heroes, but two, you are creating and establishing a plan that the residents can work with, and you set expectations for the legislature as well. So it may be not a bad idea, strategically thinking, to go through and present the hard thing and then come backwards into that.
Here's our plan to accomplish it over a protracted period of time.
I also think that we should bring them into the conversation and show.
No question.
Yeah, because they don't like feeling like they're out of control, and
They don't want to be dictated to. They want to be partners in the decision making.
I think it's important though too for us to make good policy decisions, because that's good governance, not because we're afraid of what the state's going to do. This bill doesn't even have a House sponsor, so like, I think that also is an indication of the appetite of the Capitol to even do anything with that. So if it's the best thing for us to do, let's do it and let Senate Bill 97 be damned. I don't really care about that.
I honestly don't care about the bill.
Okay, good.
But the decision that I'm looking at here is that we have made bad decisions about how to raise revenue for our essential needs that need to be rectified. We should have been raising it at a rate that was sustainable for all these years, and now that we haven't, now that's incumbent upon us to be the bad guys.
Look, if we hadn't dealt with sewer fees and rates and water fees and rates, there's no way that we would be in a position to actually accomplish the services that we need to with this bond that we're looking at. Had we been unwilling to tackle that, to make those, the whole time I've been on the council, I've been the guy that's been raising fees. Not my job, not what I want to do, not what I campaigned on, but the reality of it is, when you look at it responsibly, you come to the conclusion that it has to be done in order to be good stewards of making sure that we're able to just meet our basic obligations. And we've taken it in the face for those sewer rates and for those water rates for a number of years. And we took a phased approach to that, a 3-year approach, stepped up, and frankly, with this bond, if this gets done, which I anticipate it will, we're going to have to continue that direction with the sewer and the water rates. And it's not going to be popular with our people. But it's the responsible thing to do for us to all just deal with a small increase as we go along.
I agree that we have to be responsible. My question to the policymakers then is, if we do this 3 years from now, we have a ridiculous amount of revenue coming in.
Then you can talk about a property tax cut.
So, and I think we need to be fully prepared to answer that question, because the residents are going to ask that. We've been telling them this whole time that all this economic development we're doing, MET, our mayor's really good at telling them the numbers and what's coming out. We absolutely need to be prepared that, like, listen, you guys, this doesn't have to be permanent. If we get to that point where we can fund all of that stuff, there is a chance that that's a possibility when they ask us, because they will ask us. They've already asked.
They're going to want that in writing, because they're not going to believe you saying that. That's a political statement, not an actual promise. So, to that point, if the plan is to do that, then let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's have a policy that is written that says we are going to increase at this rate. When our revenue streams get to this amount, then we will reevaluate the property taxes and reduce it in accordance with our revenue.
Yeah, I love that.
Because that way we're being responsible in what we're doing with it. We tell them, look, we're not just going to say, oh, well, at some point we'll reduce it. There's a plan in place.
It's part of the
for it to normalize.
I think that's important. I just want to make sure.
Do keep in mind, you can't bind a future council. You can set aspirations, you can set guidelines.
But you could certainly set a policy to review it on an annual basis, and to encourage, when these benchmarks are met, for future councils to consider a reduction in tax.
So I feel like prior councils have bound this council.
Make sure too that you know, every year we do budget, we review property tax. We've been doing that every year, and it's part of our conversation that we have about that, and it always will be. One thing to keep in mind if you want to draft some formal things is, because you can't predict what the future is, right? We know we have this money coming in, but we also know that we have a whole lot of other things that are necessary that don't exist. If you're talking about wanting to build a city hall, we can have a conversation about what your debt service payment's going to look like, and it's going to take an awful lot of energy tax money to do that. So just be careful when you're looking at saying, hey, we think this is where we'll be in 5 years, when you're factoring in this is what our levels are, and we're not taking in the full picture of what does our cost look like in 5 years of the things that you want to be able to accomplish. So it's not that you can't ever get there.
I think that
but
has
you
to be the
want
total
be
package of it. You have to,
part of that,
your needs have to be
that-
part of that. Your revenue has to be part of that, and what your excess is, that's where you make your adjustments. So when I'm saying that, smarter minds than me need to write this. Somebody that might have some experience
But
in financial
the
planning.
reality of it is there's not a lot of excess, and there's still a ton of needs.
But there may be down the road, and then you can adjust in accordance
Until you
with
start
that.
to deal with, you need a city hall. You've got to produce a northern service area for the public works. I mean, there are those expenses that are looming, that are coming, and if we do nothing, those become even more difficult to achieve.
I agree with you, but what I think I heard Councilmember Wood saying wasn't a certain date we're willing to consider it. It's if the needs are met and we have excess revenue from what we need, then
It's
it
a
can be a
financial plan.
discussion. I think morally, as elected officials, we need to ask ourselves, are we willing to do that? Because otherwise, we're going to fulfill what everyone thinks about us. It's always raise taxes, raise taxes.
Yeah, but if
there's
you-
never a true evaluation. I think you're talking about a true evaluation.
An actual financial plan that takes into consideration what we think is a stable revenue based on what our needs are, and if it doesn't get there, then it continues to raise at a level until we get there, when our economic revenue starts to outpace our property taxes. And there have been a number of cities that have gone back and lowered the property taxes because they have the revenue. If you just tell them at some point we're going to,
Riverton did?
yeah,
Is there anyone else?
a bunch of them have.
Zero property
Saratoga Springs
tax,
did.
but it's because they have unified fire and they have unified police.
So they don't
100%
have
of
to.
police and 100% of fire is covered 100% by property tax, just not levied by the city because they don't provide that service.
And they use sales tax
So
for
there is a little bit of a
everything else.
misnomer
It's a shell
there.
game. It's a shell game.
It is. And
Well,
the-
I think whatever our shortfall is on public safety, that's an easy sell to
Yes,
like.
and I think that's a commitment, right?
I
Like you
hate
say, we will
taxes, but I
never,
would
like right
pay-
now, property tax.
Well, that's
would
what they're
only
supposed to
be
be for.
towards
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
public
You're supposed to be
safety
paying for your
services.
sewer,
Some of
roads,
the things though, like in the
public safety.
in the retreat you talked about, or somebody presented having equipment or technology to flag license, that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's not a priority, but having officers in seats patrolling streets, does that make sense?
Yes.
So I don't know that we need to give all of what is being asked, but for actual officers to bring us up to where we need to be, that seems reasonable.
I think there's also two other things to consider. One is, even though we have love and support of our sheriff's department, I think the public deserves to have the analysis and whatnot, accusations are made and all that kind of thing, for us to truly evaluate internal versus external,
Agreed.
just so that everything's on the table and you're making the best possible decisions.
Who does that?
Well,
Evan did it before when we did it.
and
Terrence has been
Terrence,
You do?
yeah, we've been-
Evan started it.
I agree. Like if we haven't done an RFP every 3 years, we should
And
probably
then
be
this-
just.
We did it
By the
internally.
way,
They went and
The
visited
chief
all
of
the
police for
different.
American Fork is a friend of mine, and he's willing to provide the information for your study.
Process.
Okay.
because
I'm
apples to
assuming
apples.
it was cheaper for us to keep the sheriffs. Okay.
So apples to apples, we're not comparing all of the cost of buildings and fleet and fuel and insurance and overhead and legal and all the other type of things when you compare our $200,000 number to their 80,000, which is not even their
Entry
benefits alone. Right.
That's
So
what I thought you
we
guys
do
thought.
probably need to have
It
that,
would
be
have been
prepared
awesome
for
if
that
we would have started
discussion.
laughing when she said that.
Well, there's going to be a total cost per officer no matter what, right? Whether we're talking about a contract or we're talking about running your own department. Everybody has a salary. Everybody has the cost of equipment to them. Everybody has,
FICA.
and they should know all of that
workers' comp.
per person.
HR.
Yeah, liability
legal.
insurance.
That's what I'm saying. All of it's going to be tied into
Police
this.
officers get sued a lot.
The second
Yes, we
point.
should find out what.
Hey,
your-
somebody let Ben get in here.
The second point that I wanted to make is that we hired a firm to come in and share the story in a professional way for RAP tax, and that was a small issue. This is a large issue. You probably want to consider a professional firm, and I'm not saying the same firm, because I think that there are professional firms that deal with just property taxes, but everything from leading town halls to having communication all the way through, you may want to consider that because we have such a green communications department right now.
Well, I would rather contract and bring in additional communications people for the sake of communications than hiring a very specific marketing line item for raising taxes. Because we got the crap beat out of us with the RAP tax one, and it was moving forward before we were asked publicly whether or not we were going to fund it. And I did all of the marketing for the district split. So like, it's something we can do. So if we're going to do something, I'd rather bring in some temporary employees for that department rather than passing something specifically to convince people of a tax increase.
So, yeah,
After you.
all I was going to say is, Mayor, can we move past this,
That's what I'm saying.
recognizing that we need to have a that we just need to determine if we're going to do that, but let's get through some of the needs. I haven't seen any of them yet.
So that you guys are aware,
I know.
just so that you
We're
know,
done.
our meeting on the 14th that we have for that budget meeting, we will have Chief Knudsen will be in, and he'll be having some information. We'll be having some time dedicated specifically to talking about the sheriff's department and that. Okay, and one of the things that is important, even when we're comparing cost benefit, is what is important is to identify what is the service level you want to perform, right? What is the service level you want to see in our community? And part of that is what we will utilize that helps determine how many officers do you need? What is that? And so looking at some of that will be part of that conversation as well. And knowing that traditionally population is a big thing. It's a national type situation, and we have specifically asked that we want to talk about service levels that go beyond looking at the standard population, because again, our community is unique. We have a large footprint in terms of that. We have big separation. We've got 3 cities basically that we bring together with what we have, and we have some unique stuff. We want to make sure that part of that is the conversation of identifying service levels and what that looks like for you. Because again, you can have, you know, a sheriff's car on every street corner patrolling or, you know, doing that. And it is just determining how we're feeling about what those calls are and what it's looking like, and then making sure that as we're adding businesses, and again, call levels or the extreme nature of it will be a part of that. If it's writing a lot of tickets, that's a different than if you're having murders and, you know, big heavy crime things and stuff like that. So you want to tailor it behind that. And part of that conversation also comes to what are the known things that can help calm your public safety needs, the things that you can proactively do that might be things like investing in some of those quality of life things, or youth programs, or things that are helping provide opportunities to keep people busy so that they're not creating crime, getting your community involved and wanting to be responsible for, I want to report what's going on. So there's a lot of different methods that you can go to determine what that service level is, and having that conversation with your community, as well as, you know, if they're out there articulating that we want more and more and more because of the speeding, we also want them to understand they're the ones driving and speeding, and they're going to get the tickets. Okay, like, but it is an information campaign that comes along with identifying what the service levels look like within our community.
So I have a question about that, because last year, Chief Knudsen asked for another location to help with response times. Have we been able to get any further down the road?
They're at the DirectCom building. They have
So we're in
cubicles
2
up there.
places now?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the computers are set up there so they can plug in and do their reports and everything.
Do they feel like that's improved?
I haven't heard either way from him, and I'll ask him.
Because that was one of the things he said would improve our response times, so that they're not driving all the way from the south end of the city trying to get up to the north end.
Do it.
He actually, I think it did, because he talked about that at the first listening tour stop. Do you remember that? Like, he talked to the residents about that.
I just want to bring us back again together.
Let's go.
I'm going to try to have one more stab at it, but we still have another budget work meeting on the 14th, so we can continue that conversation. But if you feel comfortable with this, now I'm going fast. If you feel comfortable, at least just looking at fiscal year 2027, if public safety is, or if you're not ready, we can revisit this conversation back in August 14th. But I think we just want to know at least some guidance from the council out of these areas. which one you would like us to focus on for this next fiscal year. Okay. Now, I'll turn the time to Angela.
Okay, so compensation plan for this coming year. This year.
Oh, yes. This one is 2026. So what we're showing you is, this is where
July.
we've been right now, and then the next slide is going to show you what our plan is. So we want to remind you of what did we do in this current budget year that we're at in regards to our compensation plan, and then where is our trajectory for 2027.
I remember what we did was we did the 2.9 as the COLA market-driven adjustment, and then there was the 3% merit on top of that. That was performance-based. We did have people go through, managers, supervisors go through, made sure they completed these performance evaluations, and it was based off of that.
Did we grade that then? So some people may have gotten 1% and some got 3%? Okay.
And it was, and we held them to that, and we marked, documented, and it got them to make sure that they either made those improvements. If someone had a write-up, they weren't allowed to get that merit until they passed 6 months probation and showed that they were making improvements.
Good.
If there were certifications needed for their job and they hadn't gotten those yet, we held them to it. They had to get those certifications, and then they were able to move to that. So the target hire was 85 to 90% of midpoint, and we were able to move quite a few of those up closer. We weren't able to get all of them to 90%, but they moved closer. Again, we're moving them closer, and that target keeps moving at the same time. We got to remember that.
What's the benchmark?
Yes, so for the new people we've got a couple of new council members, and we talked just a little bit about when we talk about these ranges of midpoint, just what that means. Is
So we have the 80% is 80% of 100. So we have the 80% is the starting, and it goes up to 120%.
Of what?
That's a range that somebody can make in your position. So no matter how long you've been here, to some extent.
And that's benchmark.
That is the
standard.
and then what we do is we do a comparison to other cities. We belong to
Okay,
a pool.
that's
So we do
all I
some
want to know.
comparisons
Okay.
to other cities to look at where that is. And then you're looking at longevity and things. So when
Sort
we
of
do a
benchmark
hire,
to other cities that can
Yes.
compete with
When you
us.
bring
when we bring an employee in, they're already coming in at less than midpoint. Okay, so less than what the middle of, so when we talk about that, what it means is the survey says,
Yeah.
here is the maximum amount people are paying for this position. Here's the middle amount range that people are paying for this position. And then this is the lowest amount we're seeing this position paid for in the industry.
And as revenue comes in, I hope we're looking to get to 100%.
So,
or 105 or
Yes,
110.
when we talked about this a couple of years ago, our goal trajectory was that we wanted to be able to have people within 3 to 5, so there's a learning curve sometimes depending on when they're coming in, that within 3 to 5 years that they were at least at midpoint if we were bringing them in down here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our trajectory, and then knowing that, we have a number of people, employees that are been here for years and they're still under midpoint. And we're at the point where we couldn't hire people, we couldn't get anybody to come to work here for less than this kind of 90%, and then you're getting even green. They have to be coming with no experience. We don't get people with experience from other cities applying to work for us. And part of that is our uniqueness. We're off the Wasatch Front, like we're off the I-15 corridor. You're in another valley. So to attract key and core people, it is harder for us, and we want to be more competitive. And when we have employees, again, especially if they don't live in the city or live in the area, you get them for a couple of years to get their experience, because we're getting people who are new to the industry. They build up their experience so they have a good resume, and then they apply somewhere else.
Oh yeah, my neighbor works for Heron City. He used to work here.
Yes, okay,
They
and that
snagged
is
him.
why. So those are some long-term challenges that we've dealt with.
Are we tracking to see what the trend is on that though? Because anecdotally, I would say that it feels like more people are staying in the last 18 months.
Yeah, and so you'll see it depending on what the position is,
Okay.
and it depends on what the market is out there. If there's a lot of vacancies for those positions, you'll see more movement depending on the cost. If there's not a high demand, then you won't. But we ran into equity issues because in order to bring someone in, we've got to bring them in at this level, and we have people who've been here that aren't even making that pay for that same position and that same work. Okay, so we have
So then we're making
compression.
several adjustments because we want to make sure that there's pay equity in the department.
So those are the things where we've been, and
They are
now Angela
challenges,
can talk
for sure.
about like where we're trying to move towards to continue our plan. So
So for 2027, do have a target goal, and we have that compensation plan that was just passed through the budget amendment.
The budget amendment, we have some funding for professional services that are to start this compensation plan to look at like structure and just talk about kind of the 3 different methods and what that would look like.
We're going to RFP for that. I've not opened, I just received that template from Melissa, so we'll be going to RFP for that. And some of the things that Terrence and I have done during last fiscal year to prepare for that was we talked to several cities, looked at how their pay structure was, what they used, what they found worked for them, what didn't work for them, what they were using before. We talked with West Valley, West Jordan, Orem, just some of them. And for instance, West Valley went and had this done. They paid $75,000 for a compensation study and plan. Said come back with that tone and the scope, what their employees were like and everything. The company came back and said, this is what we feel is best for your organization. And they put them in pay grades. And West Valley said, nope, we're not going to do it. They went with their own, except for public safety. They did put them in that. Orem has a step-in grade and pay scales and step-in grades, so it has that pathway for employees, which we really like. They have an internal IT department, though, that kind of does all the software for them and does all the changes for them. We don't have that. And then
Angela, will you talk about just there's 3 main types of compensation plans and then the hybrid between them. Okay.
So there's longevity, there's performance-based, and step-in grade. So those are the main 3
that you see.
But then
We're not
you can
talking
also
city
do
industry,
a
we're
hybrid.
talking payroll industry.
Yeah, you can also do a hybrid version of that. Our goal would be to go to RFP, get the companies to know our organization. I'm sure they're going to have us give really detailed, updated job descriptions for them, and talk to a lot of staff and managers, supervisors, and then they would come back with these plans, and then they come to council, and we decide. It's decided at that point what is the best course for Eagle Mountain City. One of the big goals that we're really trying to accomplish with this is to identify a structure that we'll be using going forward, and giving pathways to employees. What does it look like? If they're a public works one inspector, what is it going to take? What certs is it going to take? And then where would they be? Where is that going to put them? What's going to motivate them?
We want to empower them to be able to move up in their career path without having to leave our organization.
Yeah.
Have we talked to any cities that are our size? Those are all quite a bit bigger than us.
We have, because they are also part of TechNet. So we're all along the Wasatch Front. We're all part of TechNet, which is Mike Swallow's company for compensation. He collects all the data, and cities at least once a year have to update that data per pay job description, and that's where we get our pay bands from currently.
Have we done this kind of RFP before?
We have.
Okay.
Yes, but not to this scale. It's been an RFP to go out and get the pay bands again. Now we've been with TechNet for quite a while, so we've kind of used that, but not for a full pay restructure, no.
And so one of the reasons I refer to this is we're not doing a wage study.
Yeah.
What we want is a compensation plan that does identify and make sure that, again, they'll bring us back to it, but I'm guessing initially that we will choose to come back with some type of a hybrid. That performance is important to us, and making sure that we have some accountability of what the expectations are in terms of performing. Longevity is also important, but you also want to make sure that you never outpay the value of what that position is. So that just because you've stayed there for 30 years, I don't want to be paying somebody to do a job that's only valued right here.
Yeah.
So there is a cap unless
I
you
agree.
choose to continue to be improving yourself in regards to that. And then you do still need to have that comparative to the industry around you and make sure that it fits within that.
What's our annual turnover? I'm just curious in the city.
Oh, I don't have it on me right now.
Just like
I have it in one of the
like 10%,
my budget pages.
50%.
We are in the 10 to 11%.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's
is where we are.
Is that
So,
industry standard?
It actually is. It's actually real. It is in the lower end of what the industry standard. What we face here at Eagle Mountain City is those more tenured employees. So we hire everybody that we're able to get in typically is new. They're green. So with fast pace that we're growing, it is much more beneficial to us to be able to attract people who can step in and start doing that. So I can give you an example, just specifically like from the finance department. When we did our interviews for our finance manager position, we did not have a single person from any other government entity apply for that position. Okay, I hired
Maybe
somebody
that's good.
who has. So I hired somebody who has 10 years of experience in full cycle accounting, which is really good with what you want. But what they have is zero experience in governmental accounting. You take one class in college and your learning curve is a 3-year span.
Yeah.
So for 3 years, I have to try to teach this person how to do this job when I needed somebody who could step in today and do the job. And that would be okay even if you only had one employee. But when you have the average tenure of the employees in our division as a whole is 2 years or less, that's a challenge.
It's because of our location off the Wasatch.
Right, and so you have
It's
to
one
be
of the
willing
biggest
to
things.
consider paying a premium beyond what the market is paying to attract that quality if that's what you want.
So our turnover is
Okay.
not terrible.
So it's not that your turnover is terrible,
Having a hard
but
time
what you will have
attracting
is,
key
and so
experience.
again, the last one that we had, we got to year 3 and guess what they did? They take a job for the state because there's added
Non-compete
discretion,
clauses.
right? Like there's added discretion,
We
pressure.
trained them to go
But
work for
not only
somebody
that, but
else.
we've talked about that is that
And
just
they
like
stay
at the
in the
council
same pension
meetings,
We're paying all the
you guys
developmental
do way
costs.
more than any other cities do because of our pace. Our employees do the same thing. We have to expect them to work multiple hats and do a lot of stuff.
Do
So
we
it's
try to poach
like-
employees from other cities?
Yes.
We do.
So like,
All our building department.
On the record,
Our
they're
building
going to say
inspectors
that.
are for all American Force inspecters.
all right, keep up the good work.
I threatened to go set up a table out there with our logos and
That's
stuff.
because-
Right? Okay, where did we get Marcus from?
The ones we get are the, besides a few of these guys that live far away, the ones we get, like our inspectors, live here in town. And so that, we're able to attract them that way. If they live here, it's great.
They get tired of the commute out.
Is there a way to throw a carrot out with a time stamp on it? Give them a bonus, stay here for this many years?
Oh yeah, like if you stay longer.
I mean, if you're looking for something that has a really big impact like
Use the
finance,
engineering as our example.
We did with a few years ago. We hired
An engineer.
a senior engineer. Remember, and we did a bonus,
Signing
sign-on bonus,
yeah.
and I believe it was like $5,000. And Marcus is smiling.
I remember.
When the day that our current engineer at that time gave his notice, he also gave his same notice and didn't want to give a 2-week notice or anything. He just said, "I'm going to."
had he already met his requirement
No,
for the
he
time
had
frame?
not.
So did he have to pay it back?
Yes.
And he was willing to do so?
Yes.
Well, he
He
didn't have a
did.
choice, right?
That's what I mean.
Marcus? Yeah.
Like,
He was
there-
willing to leave, notwithstanding the fact that he had to
He
pay
had
it
to
back.
pay money back to the
Yeah.
city.
Well,
Yeah.
we won in that situation because we have an award
I think
winning.
that disincentivizes them to leave.
But I also
Like-
want to remind you that to replace that person, we hired 2.5 engineers. One person left, and in order to
We hired
handle
Vince
the
and
workload,
David.
we had to, right?
Yeah, but
and
we got
so
a 10x
great.
on that.
It's not, I do want to make sure that it's important that
So,
we know that
I
sometimes
mean, that's the
people's
truth.
performance and what they're doing is restricted by what is being demanded.
We totally get that. So
And it costs
yeah.
a lot to have, anyway, so we just want to
Well, I'm going
keep
to bring that
in
up in a
mind.
minute
So-
too, when they hear in a second.
So go ahead and Angela, let's move to the, okay, so then this is just saying for this year, because we don't know, we want to be able to get a compensation plan in place. And then, again, you have to have money to fund it, and we're really not in a position to fund a lot anyway, and it will come in line with looking at these trajectories and hoping that we have money. So we are recommending that we do a 3% merit-based that would be off of performance. So again, last year they had a 2.9 plus they could earn up to an additional 3%. So last year they had a collective opportunity of 5.9%. This year we are saying we only want to do this 3%. And then we
Getting
also want
everybody
to
else.
look at targeting these longer, like employees that are currently under this 90% mark.
Yes.
We want to target our funding to bring that. So we're trying to just kind of cover some inflationary things, but then target our money towards
The key position.
attract, yes.
Is there a
Key
time
positions and
element
ones that have
that's
been there a long
attached to
time.
that?
They're
I
not
mean,
by longevity in that
is
position as
it,
well.
so I think we should target our
Yes.
employees that have been
So
here longer
That's what we would
first.
do,
right?
yes. So that's what we would do within our plan is the first is we're just identifying after the 3% has been added, then this is the group of people, which we kind of already know what that is based on our study of where this is, but that would be a factor too. The longer you've been here, and it doesn't mean we want to give it all to them, but you might, like, depending on what your money and your resources is, it might be, if you've been here longer, we're getting you 2%, or this person is closer to 90 and not, right? It'll be target based to continue to make sure that we can move stuff on what that need is.
And I'm about halfway through the list right now on getting their time and position entered to factor that
It's
in.
not just how long they've been here. If they've taken different jobs and they're
Yeah.
new in that job, it is looking at their time in that position and the pay structure that's tied to that pay.
So I'm thinking about, and I've been thinking about this for a while now, because this is always going to be based on how we're doing fiscally, right? Have we put a metrics in place that doesn't require you have to come back and ask every year, where it's based on what this is outside of my realm, I am not an accountant, but I think you understand what I'm asking here. What our revenue is, what our fiscal health is, that we just have something in place that kind of deals with the bare minimum.
Yes.
And then when we have excess, you can come back and talk to us, but there's something that rides with the ebb and flow. So if we have a down year and we're in trouble, then it's this. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I can give you that example from like my previous employment that we had. So with that one, the structure that we created was you want to try to guarantee something that the employees know that they're expecting. So again, if you have your compensation plan, that is what the trajectory is to some extent, you still always have to factor in what is the money available.
Right.
In their particular situation, their compensation plan was more of a performance-based plan. So for them, what it was is that if you had to be meeting the minimum performance, it was always going to be like 1% above what inflationary cost was. But beyond that, depending on how you scored, you get a multiplier of that number. So, but what the dollar value becomes is dependent upon how much cash we have to fund what it's going. But they knew that this is what that structure part doesn't necessarily change every year, but the money that you have going into it is going to say the maximum might be we can only give 3%, but they're still able to get 1 times whatever up to 3%. So it'll have that. So we would try to make sure that we're, building something in related to it. But you're right, it does based off of funding, but we want to be able to have the structure so we can throw it out. And this is part of our long-term planning where we can say, because it doesn't do any good to adopt and have a compensation plan, and then we can't follow it because we don't have any money to do it.
Correct.
Okay?
That's where I'm headed.
And so having the plan, and then that's why with the council too, it is coming to that commitment. And then when we're looking at funding and related to personnel and stuff like this, to me, we're always looking at your existing employees have to be first. That compensation plan has to be first. Then you're looking at adding more personnel to maintain your service level versus the declining service level. Then you're looking at the additional personnel that adds programming or moves your vision or does stuff. You're kind of looking at it from a hierarchy standpoint internally to keep things moving forward. And then again,
Makes
with
sense.
a lot of our forecasting, it is that we don't want to, we've asked our employees to work on what is their 5-year needs assessment, so that even then they're looking at their departments and looking at growth and saying, we're going to potentially need these employees. We're coming up with those service level metrics that say this is the service we're providing. The easiest one for me to explain, again, is I like to look at parks as an example, and you can tie acreage and different things. So every time I have a subdivision that gets approved and they finally built their park and it comes in, we said, yes, we've demanded that, which means we already made a commitment that says we have to be making sure that we can fund the maintenance required to that park when it comes online. That's part of that priority, and that's when we talk about the mission versus the vision, and the decisions we make today ultimately are affecting what we have. We really want to be looking
But
at.
you make a good point, Kimberly, because perhaps those are some of the policy changes that we need to take a look at. Because if we continue to build neighborhoods with parks and we can't take care of the park, and we know this many acres is going to require this many man hours, then perhaps the policy needs to change to regional parks so that we can take care of what we have instead of adding more burden that we can't take care of. And I think that would probably be helpful to help us to say, okay, we've far exceeded our capability of taking care of these. This policy needs to shift. Our open space needs to have a different perspective for it. we shift to regional parks, maybe we can shift some money into open space maintenance.
Can you have developers?
They can contribute a fee in lieu.
Yes, the fee in lieu.
Yeah,
Oh,
but-
cool.
And we encourage
have to
them to
be
do that
willing to
because
do
of,
it.
well, they would probably rather do that than to build the park.
Because they get
But-
more.
Parks sell homes. Like when you drive into a neighborhood and there's no park
I've
there.
never sold a house based on a park.
Why do they build them at the very beginning in the development?
Across the street from the park.
Yeah,
I've never had anybody say the park is the reason that I moved here. They
I
can
came from a
afford the house.
community where we had,
Just one.
our parks were part of our HOA and they were, I had HOA fees that were paying for my neighborhood park and it was
Yeah.
not a city park.
Yeah.
That's why they have
in
the
regards
pocket
to
park
that.
scenario we
And-
did back in the Ranches HOA days.
Yeah.
So
But
can I want to know, is the question here, how much are we willing to fund in raises?
So right now all this is letting you know, these are the assumptions that we want you to be aware of, that as we're bringing the tentative budget forward, right now, we're gonna be putting in 3% of this
And no COLA.
compensation and
is
that.
the
So
COLA.
it is it's
No, it's
technically a COLA, but
merit-based.
it's a merit, and they still have to,
merit-based.
right, you still have to
Okay.
perform. If you're not
Sure.
meeting expectations, if you're not whatever, you're not eligible for it. But it essentially would be a 3% across the board.
Whereas last
If you're
year it was
performing and you're
2.9
doing your stuff,
plus.
3, yeah.
Can,
So
can
instead
I
of 5.
ask just one question?
Uh-huh.
With those key roles that you're talking about, it's hard to recruit for. Does it make sense to have a target hire 90% of midpoint? To me,
So
that doesn't
it-
make sense.
It does. So when we look at our new hires, when we look at new hires and we're trying to estimate what we need that wage to be. So we have our pay band, but we do look at what that position is going to be and where it is in the, is this an entry level position? Is this a mid-level? Is this a management? And that is where we would say, we want to put the placeholder in. Typically, we still only do around a 90%. but
Across
what-
the board.
That, like, when we're hiring, that's usually where we're looking. But what we do when that's coming in is, again, we're putting that in as of July 1. We don't hire on July 1. So it does allow us to say, looking at that and what those needs are, we're going to hold off 4 months to hire so that we have this little bit of money and now we can offer 100, right? We can offer this.
Okay.
Or we'll negotiate it to say it's 90%, but after your 6 months probation, we'll give you an extra 5.
Yeah.
And we'll look at those types of things to make
Okay.
sure we stay.
So we can answer this question of
Yes,
3.5%. When I was up at UFA, I had all the numbers and I can't find them. But CPI was 2.4. Social Security standard, COLA, these are national numbers, are 2.8. Some of the employer budget metrics, salary was 3.5, merit-based 3.2. So when you look at the national numbers, and those vary all over, CPI specifically is a little lower than that, but when we start using merit stuff, I think that gives flexibility. So
I also get all the increases from the Wasatch Front from all the other cities. They're starting to come in now, and I usually will bring that when we're talking compensation for budget.
So normally we would ask for more than this, but we want, and so part of that story that because it is, there's going to be police, what, that is 3%. And so again, part of the story that we're talking about is we want to have this plan, we want to get this structure, and then again, once we can bring it to the council and it's done and it's available, that's where we're also looking and saying, has our revenue resources changed? Is there additional money that we would look at potentially making some additional adjustments and not waiting until the next fiscal year?
That's kind of where I was going with having a policy in place. If our revenue exceeds this amount, we're going to earmark and take this amount to improve our staff income. We're going to earmark a portion of this to improve our public safety, et cetera. So that as that starts to come in, you're right. We don't have to come back and do a full budget meeting. That we've put some things in place that are signaling to you, yes, we want to spend this in this specific place. I think that's just good policy to be able to move forward with a plan in place so that when those revenue sources start coming in, and it's also something you can sell to the employees. Look, it's going to be commensurate based on how we're doing financially as a city. But we want you to understand that when the revenues get to this amount, there's a portion that's going to be set aside to increase where you're at. Here's your baseline. We're doing this every single year. We're going to try to increase as our revenue sources from whatever that might be, and I'll leave that to you guys. But that helps sell that to them also.
This might be a good opportunity to just bridge with an idea that I had brought up internally that I'd like to have us maybe look at, is that at the end of our year, if we had collectively budgeted money for these payrolls and these, what our benefit costs were, and we do factor in that you're going to have some natural attrition and things that happen, but that money that would roll in and becomes fund balance, it's just assigned to go back towards like rate stabilization for your benefits and things like that, or money that you're saying we would potentially draw from if you want to look at like certain like hiring, like this recruiting plan type stuff. We still want it to only be one-time funding or money that is available again that we'd naturally look at. But if we had planned for this to be compensation related, and when we say assigned, it just means it's part of your overall unassigned fund balance. We still have that maximum 35%. It doesn't change that. But we are saying that if there were some target things that we want to do, well, this is the money that came out of personnel that was related to this. So when we come back and say, hey, we have an opportunity to do some of this stuff, how do you feel if we pull back some of this because it's part of the, like a rate stabilization type fund if you were looking at it from a utility standpoint. That you're looking at that if you need to bridge benefit stuff. So right now,
we're going to go
we'll use that as an example.
Actually,
to talk about benefits that comes in perfectly for that next slide.
Who would make the decision on that?
It would have to be the council because it's not budgeted, it's not appropriated.
So,
okay, like
rather than having all of us have to, maybe it's the mayor and 2 council members to review that at the end of the year, review the recommendations of who the staff is saying that should be there, and what the mayor and 2 council members evaluate and say, okay, we can allot this amount towards this based on whatever the criteria that they come up with, and then assign that, and the rest of it goes back to the fund balance.
What's been the historical average? That's what I'm curious about, because it seems that this is lower than what it has been in the past couple of years. And so I would really be interested in what's the 5-year average, because this feels like we're being a little bit
It is lower, but it's so that we
too
can
cautious.
So that we can try to bring up those that are on the lower side.
Okay, so that's the intent in it.
What we anticipate our revenue restrictions are going to be.
And so that's part of it too. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I honestly think we need to, like in our vision, we need to have a city that is compensating its people very well.
Agreed.
And we can't be lagging behind. We need to be leading in it. Now, and then that then becomes, okay, so that's what you're trying to aim for among some other things like that. Then how are you going to govern your city to achieve that?
Yeah.
But this has got to be one of those things on the docket. We've got to have employees that are paid really well, where people think, I want to go to Eagle Mountain. They treat their employees really well.
Craig, that's why I asked the question, because that's been our target. I mean, over the last several years, that's been our goal. And so this to me feels like we're kind of putting a pin in it and saying we can't really afford to do what we've done in years past. And so that gives me pause. That makes me hyper concerned with, well, what's the direction that we're going.
So then let's talk about that, because again, what we're doing is internally we're trying to figure out like where we're balancing things, but that's why we're here today, is to start some of those because it's the same pot of money that we're looking at in terms of like hiring and stuff like that. So if the council, if you were to say, like, we feel like in terms of the priority, you guys keep talking about how your existing employees are the most important, and we feel like that we really need to offer a minimum of 5% opportunity for people depending on what they're doing. What that just does is it just kind of reduces what we might look at for, it might mean that you can have one less employee on a new hire, or right? It's that same thing where we're balancing it out.
Kimberly, I'm just going to say this for me. I mean, I've been advocating for this for a number of years. I just feel like this is, I feel like what we're doing is that we're going backwards with a decision that limits it to 3%. And I don't like COLAs in general. I thought the 2.9 COLA was fine, and then a 3% merit to kind of adjust from. And what I hear you saying, and what I've heard the mayor say, is that our resources are pretty tight. But if we can't pay our people, then we're not providing the basic services that we need to our residents. So I think that's really one of our, look, my employees are my very most important asset in my business. Mm-hmm. If they are not there, they are not producing the work that I'm committed to produce. They are not seeing to the quality that I need my work to be produced at. And what it does is it impacts my revenue or my ability to please my clients. And our clients are our citizens. And I think we hear that all around. And so, do I want to see a city hall? Yeah. Do I want to see that come sooner or later? I don't want to impact the employees in a negative way to accomplish that. So I think we have to balance that. And so from my perspective, I honestly think this should probably change and elevate a little bit. I don't know how everybody else is going to feel about that, but it feels like a step backwards to me from the things that we've been, I mean, I think it really should be. I think we ought to do like a 2% that's just a COLA, and a 3% that is I think we ought to do at least that. I mean, those
That's still going backwards from last year.
It is, but those employees, but not everyone got that. I mean, you had to get a 2.9%, that's what you were guaranteed, and there was a 3% for merit. So I think if you get a 2% just cost of living, recognizing what's happened, and there's still an opportunity to earn 5 total. There's still an opportunity to earn 3%. Now, I don't know what that does to all of the other budget projections and the other asks, but that to me is there anything more important than our employees? We're always saying it.
Well,
do our actions support
Can I ask
it?
another caveat to that too? So, meaning that it's there's going to be a lot of staff that will feel differently than I feel. Okay, and at this point, I'm talking in terms of my opinion. I am one of these people.
You're the
who's gonna
finance
be affected,
manager, so
but
tell
what
us.
I want to talk about is I want to focus on anybody who's not at least at midpoint. Okay. So I would like, if we're looking at that, I'd like to say.
So how do we write a policy that gives you that
Like if
flexibility?
you're at midpoint or not, I still think you need to have you still need to have a 2.5% increase that you're getting.
Okay.
But if you're over midpoint, that is your 2.5, and that is the max you can get this year until the compensation, until we look at
I would
it.
agree with
But if
that.
you're under that, then we want to be targeting people that is going to say,
You
if
said it
you're
better
under
than I was
this,
going to.
we're going to move you up,
gonna say.
and we're going to make these shifts. And the way that I look at it at first, in terms of, because you can see some big swings, is that we would have some things in place. And again, everything still depends on what you can fund. But it would be looking at things that if you're under 90%, our target is to try to get you as close to that as we can. And for some people, it'll be more. If you are 95 to 100, we will move you to the next, whatever it takes to get you to 100% with the maximum of 5%. So if you're at 95, you're going to move to 100. Okay? But if you're at a 97, you're only going to, right, after we give you the 3%, you're now to 97, you'll get an extra 2% to get you to 100. Like it would be a staggered method that we would look at, but my goal is we have some people who are not at 80%, okay, and some people who are at only 85.
move them
Is
a
I
little
really
faster.
want to target the ones that have been here with some time, that if they were to leave today, I have to pay 10% more to hire somebody.
Can we, just for those department heads in the room, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Yes.
Like Brad and.
Because like I said, that is my.
It's really going to
Some of
freak
that
them out
does
to answer you.
resonate with me. Why? I want to know. Like I
Because
have
that's been the
employees in my
culture here.
business.
That's been the culture here.
We have people in the neighborhood
That they can answer
that
us.
are just in that boat that you're just talking about, 85%, and they're coming to me all the time, asking, hey, I've been here for a while.
I think we need to get them up.
Yeah.
So can we fund it at the level that we did last year? Can we find a way to do that and to
So we'll
ask
say that's our bucket of money, right?
and to
Our bucket
ask
of
you
money
and to
is
ask you, Kimberly, to help us
and then
create a
how it gets
policy that allows you to apply it in the way that you think is most effective. That's what I'd like to hear.
And while I don't disagree at all, there's only a certain amount, a bucket of a certain amount of money. There are certain employees, not all, but there are some employees out there that would rather see more help in the department. So if it's taking away from some of these new personnel asks, and they're not going to have as much help, they're already wearing a lot of hats. So they'd rather have more help, get some of that, relief in the department, and not have so much.
I think that's where we have to rely on the department heads to give us that information.
Do we let them choose then? Do we say, do you need more help? Would you like pay
I think
raises?
have them tell us what they need in the department.
I agree.
That helps us to understand what the needs are there, and then I think we use our financial staff. I think we have our mayor weigh in on this and take a look with Ben and say, okay, what is the greatest benefit? If we add 2 more employees to this department, the department will flourish. If we don't hire 2 employees and we pay the supervisor that money, they stay there. Which one has the greatest net benefit to the department? And you guys are going to have to make some of those decisions and then say to us, every department is not the same. We're going to evaluate needs.
That's smart.
If we need to get 2 employees here and the supervisor is not going to leave if they don't get a massive raise this year or whatever, that we need to do that. And those are some of the hard decisions where we have to do, you have to keep the boat afloat, right? You got to have enough people rowing. They can't just sit out there and float.
I just sort of, I totally agree with everything you've said. I just sort of think that it's both. Because the issue is that we expect more out of our employees. Brad just a few minutes ago said, well, "It's going to be a late night tonight."
It's your fault.
He's over there, no comment.
My response was, I hit my 40 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
And I left at Wednesday. That's not counting Sunday.
Us
That's
too.
not counting Thursday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we do expect this of all of our employees.
Yeah.
It just became, this is the culture that we're here. So I think we need both. We need more employees. But if we are going to put that expectation on our employees, especially the high performers who have been promoted and are leaders of tomorrow, then you also need to compensate them, because quite frankly, we're not losing them just because they get paid more at the state. Or
You're
at
burning
some
them
other city.
out.
They get paid more
Yeah.
because I get paid more at the
There's
state, and
sacrificial
I only
lambs.
have to work 40 hours. I
Yeah.
can go home.
Well, I was just going to say
Or
that.
I'll get paid
you all
less,
talked
but I
about
can
the
sleep at
push
night
and
and
pull.
wake up the next
That's
day.
exactly what I was just
Yeah.
going to say. You can pay them more money,
Yeah.
but if you don't get them help, what good does that do?
Right, it's both. It's both.
Yes.
If you can't do both, which one's the priority? To
Yeah.
get them more help, and then next year we evaluate and go, look, last year we weren't able to give you
We need
the
more revenue.
raise that we wanted to give you, but this year we have the ability to make up for it.
So here's a challenge I say with that too. So I'm going to use Kimberly as an example. Kimberly last year came in with, I think, 3 or 4 requests of full-time people. So, and you guys gave her at least 2, right? Two people, and that's fantastic. And prior to that, you got Jared a year before, and that did replacement. Oh no, Jared came in for. Anyway, you got 2 new people. So you did give her the help that she needs, but it's going to take Kimberly 3 years to train them up, and so you put more workload on Kimberly at the exact same time, because not only is she expected to do what she did before, but it takes her 3 years to get them up to speed. So you need to pay her.
And then as soon as you have them trained, they're leaving.
Right. If we don't,
So you get to do it again.
We need to spend more money on the initial
You need to
hire.
start giving
really is
people
what it
bonuses
is.
at year 3.5.
So here's the moral of the story. I think that you do need to do your very best to try to fund new positions. I do agree that the employees are probably going to look at 3% and
They're going to feel like we slighted them.
yeah. But at the same time, I think where we really need to go is we're in a position right now. We're looking at it like this, right? But in a few years, if this and if this and if this happens, we might be in a position where we have a lot of money, and then suddenly you want to make sure you're not giving all the money away. You want to make sure you're making investments in other areas.
That's what I was saying. If that starts happening like we think this
Right.
fall, you've created a revenue source we didn't have before, and one of the first places that should be reinvested is back in the employees.
Which is exactly why I'm going to bring it back full circle to the fact that I think we need a professional, outside, third-party, independent review of our finances. And I've done it before with not just Mike Swallow, which is just a salary
I
survey,
actually agree.
but a true salary survey with a firm. And when they come in, they give you a plan that the employees can see as predictable, and a plan that is also based on your revenue. So if you hit these targets, then you can do it and move forward appropriately. And I also want to tie that to the last time I went through this, we brought in a company called GovHR, and they did a fantastic job. They went through and they went through every job description, not just the description, but they sat down with the employee and their supervisor to say, what are you really doing? What's in the job description? Then came back and went through a scoring process. They came up with what the person should be paid based on all the market and all that. And some actually were overpaid too. So it
How'd
produced
that
some
go
of
over?
that. But others were outliers and had
They
to be
were all
cut
the
up.
council members.
But what they did is before they brought that in, they came in a couple of different ways. Once they came to the staff to make sure that leadership, to make sure, are we level set? Is there any outliers? Did we miss anything? Then they came in again to the council. They made that pitch to the council so that the council could look at it and say, okay, now that we see all this information, we can then turn the dial. Do we want to say, okay, we want to be 75th percentile of the overall market? Or, hey, we're off the Wasatch Front. We need to be 110% percentile because we're trying to bring people over here. You as a council can turn those dials to get to where you think it's right, And then they come back and they make a presentation to the entire staff and the public, because part of this is having an independent review and study means that you have something to fall back upon, that you can show the residents to say, this is not us, this is not biased because we're comparing one city to another, and they're all artificially inflating it. It's not the city leadership. This is an outside agency that's come in and done this, and it gives you credibility.
That last part I don't care about, but I'm going to tell you, this is something I've wanted. I think having somebody come in and no emotion, no attachment, tell us where we're deficient, where we're doing well, and then we can deal with reality.
There's no agenda.
I think that helps all of us to look at it and go, okay, there's actually a lot more that we can do that we haven't been doing right. Or maybe we're doing too much in these areas, and that's preventing us from being able to really address the areas that we need to do better. And I think it's a smart idea.
How much did it cost, and how long did it take them to do it?
It cost, I'm guessing it was between $43,000 and $45,000.
Okay.
And I don't remember how long it took them to do it, because I came in as they were buttoning up that study, so I wasn't there at the beginning.
It's got to be a couple months, right?
Yeah, it would help us with this year's.
At least,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
keep in mind that that city is at least, we're at least 2, if not now 3 times larger than that city. So proportionally speaking, there's more positions, more, it's going to take longer.
They're probably going to make recommendations to us where we're deficient in staff as well, for us to reprioritize how we're using our money, because it might be that, hey, we're 15 people low in this department, and that's why we're not getting the outcomes we want, so we need to readjust where we're spending our money so that we can actually meet our staffing requirements.
Exactly right. Now, there's one more thing to consider. You could do a lower increase and also fund the study and say, hey, we're going to take the study and use it to move forward with. And maybe that's less insulting to the employees, but the risk that you run with that is if the study comes back with stuff that you can't handle or can't do, you've locked yourself in. So you may want to go forward with something that's a little larger, do the study, and then decide if you want to make the study public or not, because West Valley City didn't even take their study.
Yeah. I think the reality of it is if we're going to pay to have that done, knowing the people that I serve with, we want to move forward with what it says.
But you may not be able to, Melissa.
Right.
And
By what?
that's the problem. You may not be able to
raise
all the
taxes
positions are
or...
I'll tell the last city I was in had that expectation, and they thought they had the revenue to do it. But like all the states, especially all the red states going across the nation right now, Iowa lowered their property taxes significantly. Wyoming, I think, just lowered, or Colorado lowered them, just said, cities across the board, you're all lowering them.
Wyoming did that.
Property taxes and whatnot. So
They're
you
gone.
might have legislative impacts. So to a state like Iowa that 100% of their revenue practically comes from property taxes, it almost comes from nothing else. They don't have impact fees. They don't have very little local option sales tax. When it's 100% property tax driven and you lower it, then the city was forced into a position by their legislature not to be able to do this, implement it. And so you've got to create some outs for yourselves just in case what if there's a war? What if you never know what can happen.
One last question. The other piece of legislation that dealt with our general fund reserve, where did that go?
It's dead.
So that was part of the same bill.
That's the same bill. It's dead, but it's not. It could be.
Because it's probably going to come back.
It's going to go from 35 to 25. Or
We'll find out
28.
tomorrow.
It will come back next year if it.
I'm asking that because if it does, it's something we're going to have
Not
to
if
adjust.
Dan McKay doesn't get elected again.
Can I add one, just, you kind of asked. I have one point of perspective. I think as an organization, what we're experiencing too, and I've seen this just as we try to develop and build our divisions, is it wasn't that long ago where you had kind of like a department head, and then you had all this staff that's just stacked underneath it. And there's no delineation,
Mid-management,
no role
kind of,
breaks, no nothing. And I think that that's what's kind of contributed to some of our wages being similar and staff being closer. And so, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job in starting to develop the structure and really get like managers in place and supervisors in place. And so I think as we do that and we can define what those are too, I think long term that'll help us establish and really
a career path for
have
people.
that
like a
path
step
forward or
kind of make sure that those wages are balanced out. But I think it's a little bit of everything that we talked about, because we talk about this all the time down in our division about when we experience something or the role with this, like where does it land? Does it need to stay where it's at? Does it need to push down? Does it like need to go up? And we talk about this like daily, and so.
Can I ask you a question to follow up to that? Because I wonder, as you create management positions, what does that do to your workload? Do the managers maintain some of the workload, or are you creating a management position where now the labor that needs to still be performed, now it creates the need to have another person to help with that labor?
So sometimes we backfill with positions when we feel like it's necessary. Sometimes we've just delineated roles, and it's just based on where we think we're at that point in time.
Still carrying the workload, but you've given them a career path to be able to increase.
But it's not just career path, but I think we're trying to help develop. I think our experience is no different than what Kimberly's explained. There's several of us that have been here multiple years. We have a basic concept and understanding of how things function or work, but then we have a majority of our staff that's quite a bit newer, trying to help bring them up, train them, and you have to spend time with them. And so that's just a perspective that I've seen over the years, and I feel like we're starting to get there. I think it's starting to establish.
And there is a real cost to
There are inefficiencies in that system because it takes,
especially if they're leaving.
Look at the loss of, I've never met Chris Dusty. I don't know, I don't have favor or negative or anything. The loss of Chris Dusty turned into 2 engineers. 2.
Well, you and I know the loss of Pete King was probably 4. It's like,
he was a great person.
Steve, I love you, but
Hey, Pete King was awesome.
Pete, by the way.
Okay.
They're in there. Behind the scenes on a lot of his work.
I'm
He
just
was
teasing. Pete
was awesome.
was awesome. And it's just because we use that. Yeah, he was a good.
COVID hire.
Yeah.
Okay.
You hired.
All right, so we're close to the end. We only have like 6 slides.
what are we on, 2?
It's probably going to drive all of these things that are going to make the decisions, because if we're going to do a study, that's going to definitely impact all of this.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so this part, what we're doing today, because I know all of your time is valuable as council members, and we ask a lot. It's all personal time, right? Every time you give us is your personal time.
But you don't ask any more of us than we ask of you, Kimberly.
And so, but this is
on your personal time too.
I advocate for separate kind of budget meetings. It's important that we get together and we can have these discussions that are leading things along the way. So I want to thank you again. For some of you, it's been 3 nights in a row this week that we've had opportunities.
Hadn't noticed.
Yeah. So, okay.
The permanent butt mark
Going
in that
into
chair.
employee benefits now, this I think we do a really good job in. We are, and every time we meet with benefits providers and we talk with people and we're trying to recruit people, we're one of the best in
One
the
of the
state.
carrots that we
Yes,
dangle.
yes, that is.
We say, look at your
For
full
sure.
compensation package.
So I try
not
to
just
protect
the
this
dollars you
one
take
at all
home,
costs
but they
because
also can.
employees are used to this. We do pay for 100% of the premium for them and their dependents. We talked about that a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. So it's
It's a perk.
Do other cities do that?
Some do, but there is
I didn't know
some
we were
that have
paying
to pay.
100%.
We pay 100% of the premium, but it is a high deductible plan, so it is a $5,000
Sure.
deductible. But then we
Do we need a contribution?
To the HSA.
Oh, how
That's
much
a
do we
low deductible
contribute
line
to
for
HSA?
It depends on the plan. So
Wait,
family
5,000 is
plan
what
is
ours low one is.
a family plan. It depends what plan they pick because
what
there are 2 plans.
Listen,
There are 2 plans. So there's a plan where they have more access to network, and then there's a smaller and it's just the hospital. It's not the doctors, but it's just the hospital plan, and it's less access. So there's less dots on that.
preferred providers,
Correct.
right?
What's the range though, just as far as the contribution to HSA?
So for family plan, there is one that they do that has the less hospital network, and it pays about $4,500, just under that, towards the HSA, broken up in 24 pay periods.
That's what
And I have that one as well. And then if you take, we try to push the employers to take the steps incentives and things like that. That covers the other $500.
Do we do a contribution?
we do. It's to the HSA.
That's what I was
Yes.
asking about.
That's the.
So that's the family plan, and then if it's a two-person plan, it's a little less because they're expected to have the less expensive, and the single plan, which is even less. But it's a really good, and that's how we've gotten some of our employees. But what I have is a sheet, and if they're coming from especially private sector, where they're paying quite a bit into the, but they're going to take a pay cut. That's all they're seeing is that dollar amount that they're going to take in a
So
pay
you're
cut.
actually getting a raise.
But what we do is we put that sheet and we show that to them, and we're like, this is how much are you on a family plan? This is how much it comes out to. Total compensation at the bottom goes up by like $30,000 when you're including the pension, HSA, and all of those items. And we have been able to recruit people because we show them that difference there.
That's, I
Yeah.
mean, taken in its whole, that's a very different thing than saying, you know, we're offering $80,000 for this position. That's the wage, and then you're going to add another $30,000 in benefits, so it's really $110,000. Because in the private sector, it's $110,000.
Yeah, that's the trick, is balancing
Yes, that's what
wages
I was
versus.
mentioning.
So it
Start with
includes
their
both?
salary. We break it down. We ask them, are you on a family plan? So we can put that in there. This is how much the city is paying for your plan. This is how much they're contributing to your HSA. This is how much you're paying for your life insurance. All of that.
And
We-
retirement?
Okay,
Yes, we
I have
include the
a
retirement.
question and an idea at the same time. What if we balance that? What if the carrot that you're looking for is, this is the bucket. We have for this position, I'm just going to use a number. It's $100,000. If you choose to do our benefit package, your wage will be this, and this is how much the benefit package is worth for that $100,000. If you choose not to do the benefit package, you get the $100,000 and blah, blah, blah. And let them choose which one they want to do, because it's the same amount of money.
There's a problem with that, though, and it's the way the state governs, because if you have over 50 employees, you have to provide insurance. And so to say you can take the money and not have insurance, you can't.
Nobody can waive their insurance.
Because of Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
That you have to.
Yeah.
Well, the retirement stays in place.
Yeah.
That has to happen,
But the insurance,
but the insurance isn't a guarantee.
The only employees,
That's what I'm telling you.
the only employees that can opt out and take
If they're
advantage of that
covered.
in lieu of is their coverage somewhere else.
It's like if your spouse
And they have
has
to sign up
insurance
for
through
that.
It's the federal
Because
law.
Obamacare.
Yeah.
Because it's a public.
Affordable Care Act.
No, it doesn't.
Just because we have a certain number.
Dude, I
yes.
opt out of mine all the time. We get like 600 employees. I don't pay insurance through my company, and
Have
it's
insurance? Does your wife have insurance
No.
or anything?
You have to have some sort of alternative
Yeah.
insurance.
So
but
your
they're
company
required.
might not be on the up and up.
Also, too, you want to
Well-
make sure your employees are healthy.
They're
There's no
registered in
requirements.
Guam.
Yeah. Well, I
So-
think that's the trade-off there. So that does change my
roles.
understanding of where we're at. We're saying we're paying 90% of benchmark, but we're paying maybe 110 or 120% benefits. So maybe we are. we're just
But it's important to
overweighting
understand that part of that
benefits.
benefits package is what you and I would contribute to our Social Security accounts. I mean, it's important that, right? The
We are
URS
exempt
amount's
from
part of
Social
that.
Security,
We're exempt from
Oh.
Social Security.
So I think
Yes.
that's a factor that you need
Yeah.
to
And also
put into
these are
the
that way.
equation.
No, you can choose.
choose.
The cities,
Eagle
You
Mountain
can
opted
opt out once
One
and then
time.
forever. And this was chosen
when they
back in
incorporated.
Yes,
and-
yes. So we're stuck with that one.
Okay.
And some cities offer both, so that is something we have to keep in mind too. They have the pension and they also offer Social Security.
They pay the
Yeah.
6.2%. Yeah.
So we just went to RFP for our benefits. We had been with NFP. They've changed companies several times. It was
Yeah.
First West Benefits when we came in.
Mhm.
We went to NFP. They've just recently changed to Ion. We
Yeah,
went
they
to
got
our
acquired.
correct,
Yeah.
and it went
I think
kind of
Hub
downhill.
competed.
Yeah. What was that?
I think our firm competed.
Oh, in this
Yeah.
one?
He came in and told me that. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know they were out in RFP, so
We did.
sorry you lost.
We received 5 or 6 entries. We went with top 2. We interviewed them, had them come in with some proposals. We ended up going with GBS. They are a leader in the public sector and have all these entities listed here. I think it was like 90. And I think they're going to do a really good job for us. They have some really good analytics, and we just got the signed contract completed today. So I expect that next week they'll be shopping for rates for us already.
But isn't GBS, don't they have like the worst dental options?
No, so all they, So they're just.
I know they're a broker, and I.
No, they're just
was
a
in
broker.
this
So they have lots of different plans, and we choose from them. Like
Okay.
we've been with
Don't get the
them.
crappy ones because that's a horrible
No.
disadvantage for our employees.
No.
Yeah, they're like a Morton or Hub or.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they can shop. We've had experience, like we don't want to use Sun Life again. So we've already told them, please don't go with Sun Life. Even if the rate is good, it's not been the best experience.
MPS switched to these guys for a year and then we left.
GBS?
Yes. So that's why I'm like.
So we will be starting to work with them next week and getting those rates. With the, I think we held 7% or 7.5 as a placeholder for an increase. Oh, on this one, so medical, and these are just assumptions. They're going to shop these for a 7% increase. That's placeholders in the budget right now for that. Now, if that comes in lower, we would hope then there's some extra monies there. But those are our current placeholders for that.
When it comes in lower, it's come in lower before
It
because
has.
I know it.
We came in with negatives.
So when that happened, did we? I don't remember what we did. Did we shift that money to something else that benefited employees, or did it just get absorbed back into
the budget?
I don't believe we shifted it necessarily and said this is targeted towards personnel-related items.
Okay.
Yeah.
It became.
That's what I wanted to
like-
know.
Yeah.
And all the retirements through URS, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
401k, pension,
Yes.
awesome.
The URS.
Oh,
Next one.
and then
There we go.
That's why you're fitting it.
Segue.
He's just trying to get us moving.
Our URS
Slide
rates,
number 6.
There's a for tier 1 there was a 1% decrease. Tier 2 defined contribution plan was also same, and then the hybrid plan was a decrease, but the employee part, that one that we keep thinking is going to go to state legislature and they're going to let us just pay that. Pick it up. Hasn't happened yet, so it's the 40 plus 49 cents. So still.
Yeah.
So what
lower.
will that, so when you're talking the plus 49, where are we at today? So what is the?
0.81, I think.
Okay, so we'll be a little,
And it's still less than 1%. Yeah.
The legislature increased,
you know, like-
did that teacher comp increase and it underfunded the pension plan, but cities are pegged at that 10, so
Yep.
now everyone gets to pay for their raise.
It's a shell game, I'm
It
telling you.
totally is, yeah. They should just remove the cap.
So, now we're gonna show you the list of the requests that we have, that have.
Do we want to see
come
this?
forward.
I'm not sure.
Right now, I guess what we can do too is we can say, how are you feeling? Again, we're on the tail end. What this is, for this is to just give you an idea of what this list is that's come forward right now, with where we're at, that we will continue to flesh out as we're moving forward. And knowing that there's still a lot in between, but to kind of let you guys have a preview of that. But we will tailor our discussion around, again, where we're at with our time to know that we can continue to have discussions, but we'll be a little bit mindful of where we're at.
Next year when you have this, can we create stock photos of our real employees? Because that would make this amazing.
We will do that. Yes. So I have 2 slides of all.
Simulation.
These are all the personal requests that we received.
So, and he's got 2 slides, so when he says all, we're gonna look at one and then we're gonna go to the next one. But we're
So
gonna
just
show
let me
you
know.
everything that was requested. Okay, and they're, trying to think how it might be sorted or anything like that. Okay, but just to let you guys kind of have a glance of what is coming in there, and then we're gonna have you tell us when you're ready for him to switch to the next page.
And
to
these
look
are,
at the full
these
list.
are ads.
These are requests for additional
from the departments.
FTEs. Yes.
Can I just talk about the library real quick? Because I met with the library board, and they are about 50% of the staffing they should be based on
All of our departments
the
are.
different factors.
Yeah.
The issue there is we have no place to put.
Can you speak to these?
Lower
Can you
than square footage and all that.
That's why we need a city hall.
And then this is what happens
Wait.
when you have too many residences and not enough businesses.
Okay,
City.
Yeah.
Brad, what do you, I mean, we need another
Situations,
arborist,
that's where
really?
you would draw on your property
Yeah,
taxes
well,
to.
I mean, we requested, it's to try to set up to get a full crew. And so basically we have a full work crew. We have people out climbing trees and whatnot. You have somebody that's like our community foresters in doing work. You can't send one person out there themselves. It's just not safe.
Is there a way to contract that like we do with like Truco
We've still
for
done
lawn?
some of that,
Okay.
so.
All right. Keep going.
I'm assuming you'll send us this so we can digest it.
Yes, we can send the slides to you.
What does the alternative mean?
So what alternative means is that so again, we have our employees and they're doing a request. We have a request form that they answer questions, their justifications, what it is. We talk about what these responsibilities and duties are. And so internally, as we're going through and we're looking at it and we have additional questions and we're meeting with them as they're selecting, we have conversations about recommendations if you're asking, so we'll use that one maybe just as an example. So I want to see how it is that's on there. So planning asks for a long-range planning manager, a current planning manager, and a planner. When we met and we talked to Brandon about it, again, because everybody knows that we have way more, everybody has needs and we can't like fund everything. So we start having conversations about, that's 3 that you need, what does this look like, what can we tweak? So in this particular instance, what we talked about considering as we move forward was, if we gave you a planning manager to take, because right now Brandon is functioning as, right, the community development director and the manager of the planning division, and then he's got the building division, and then he's got neighborhood improvement. So getting a manager level position helps free up some of that so that there's more time for Brandon to function in what his capacity is. And along with that, the other division he asked for was on the other pages. We did also ask for a manager for neighborhood improvement. So we've got 4 asks that are within there. And we start looking at, okay, talk to us about where your greatest pinch points are. What can we do in looking at that? Where can we have some compression? Or so if we're able to look at it as a planning manager and not breaking it out into these other functions, that's the planning division area, and we have a planning manager there, and then we also give you an additional planner. Does that kind of meet some of those basic needs, but we can what it does is it delays the breaking out of like current year planning versus long range planning, but you have a planning manager, and instead you'd be looking at the staff there. Is there people who can function in a lead capacity to help?
So this kind of goes back to what I was asking before. I think putting their actual wage next to that helps us to look at that and go, okay, we can get one planning manager, and I'm not saying that that isn't necessary. You probably absolutely needed that years ago. Or I can get 2 planners out of that. Which one is going to be more beneficial to the organization? And could we shift some of the responsibility between the 2 of them to free up you, and we get more workload out of 2 than doing 1 person? To be able to see that helps, talking about turning the dials, that helps us to be able to look at it and go, okay, we understand what the workload is here. If we hire the manager, you're going to get a high-paid person, but you really need people to do the work that's in that department. And if we could do 2 people, is that going to be more beneficial to your workload than bringing in a manager?
But are you already asking that?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing internally and having those conversations to say, we've done that with some of those areas. Is it more beneficial for you to have 2 planners or a planner and a manager? Where is this coming in? Because again, a planning manager is still a planner, and they're still doing that. What they're doing is taking on a supervisory capacity with some of that staff
They're just doing both.
taking place. So we are absolutely having those, and so when you see alternative, it means that we've kind of gone back to them to start having conversations about, again, if we could, we want to do everything. If we can't, we want to know what are the additional alternatives that we could potentially look at by what about part-time? Could we fulfill it with part-time versus full-time? We could give you 3 part-time instead of that 75 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week.
So
what does that look
my
like?
question then is, if we're not going to see how much it costs, how do you want us to evaluate?
So what I'm asking you, I want to tell you too that there is a reason that I don't show you the money.
Okay. Well, I would like to see the money.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying at this level. At
you-
this level of the conversation,
Okay.
the reason I don't show you that, and that's why we come to
You don't want that
if
to
you
be the-
remember, the very
Yeah.
first thing that we
To
asked
slam
you
the
was,
topic.
is where do you guys feel like you're at in
Okay,
terms of these
this is where I'm
priority
going.
type
Could you-
things, right?
Instead of putting full-time, because they're all full-time, right? Was there
Some
No, we have
are
seasonal.
seasonal,
There's one seasonal.
and then
Okay.
the other one we have
Could
is
you just
part-time.
add in a column that says, that lines up with that first slide you had, essential, safety,
Yeah.
da-da-da-da-da?
Oh yeah, that area.
Yes.
We can add the
Right,
yes.
shouldn't we
It's a good
add that
suggestion.
thing through there?
Yeah, and so that was why we said We want you to think about where you feel like your priorities are in terms of safety and quality of life and things like that too. And then as we come in here, we start looking at these positions and how they kind of fit into that. And then we start looking at the dollars and saying, sure, okay, but sometimes if I do all the money up front, what I'm trying to do is eliminate bias at the beginning, okay?
I understand.
I don't think I'm going to be driven by bias,
And
but the ultimate
nobody's gonna
decision
say-
is we have to make the decision on the budget.
That's right.
That's the decision. And if we aren't ever evaluating the budget until we get to the very end, what have we really evaluated? Just stamping it and saying, yeah, we agree with your assessment? Because we haven't really assessed anything.
Right. Okay, go back. Right, and so we're not doing that. So, and in terms of what the conversation is tonight and what we're doing is looking at these priority stuff. So this is the list of the full requests. We had 37 requests, okay, that came in.
First of all, I want to say that there's no way we have enough lawsuits or legal need to have an assistant. I just want to.
ChatGPT, bro.
He put Paul Jerome's name in the contract so that.
That was not me. That was LRB.
Actually, it's Gilmore Bell that
Or Gilmore Bell that did that.
So
second point.
Because we talk a lot, I understand more what the question is at a different level than maybe what staff's answering for your question. Are we heavy at the top? Are we heavy in the middle? What about our middle management? Do we have people in the trenches that are actually doing the work? So as I've thought about our conversations, so that you can understand, workload or the manager's doing this. Now that I've been here for 14 hours a day and see what these guys do, the reason, even though Brandon or Steve might be at this level, and Brandon, we call him a department head, in our mind, at least when I was on council, that meant that he kind of ran and assigned projects and had the planners and worked side by side with him. What it really means is he spends all his time with me over here, while nobody's over there attending the guys in the side of work. So when we're talking about middle management, we're missing a layer in this case because he's working on the budget with us and taking care of planner stuff over here while nobody's helping the people that are in the trenches and directing traffic.
I think you lose employees because of that too.
That's not misunderstood. I understand.
Yeah, but I mean that's where that question is do we need two
my
guys
point
in the
is that
trench?
you're asking two different things here, but you're not providing the information for us to do an evaluation. So you're saying we want to do this much of a raise. What is that number for all of the staff? Like, show us the number. It's this much money, and here's the pot, and you need this many people. What's that number? So if you want us to make an evaluation, then we can say, okay, if we're going to accomplish this and you need this much help, where's the trade-off?
But the question a minute ago was, do we need two people in the trench or one person here? And I'm telling you, we're missing that guy.
I think for me, I'm more of a let's allocate so much to this
And I get
department,
that-
and Brad, you go hire what you need.
That's
I
where
don't
I'm
know
headed.
that I need to be that granular. I don't really know all of these, different line item jobs, but I would just trust the department head to say,
Here's your
what
budget,
got,
live within it.
and you're going to decide.
That's exactly where I'm headed.
I don't know that I need that much granularity by job. I don't know what the other council members think, but
And that's why, we're gonna go, I do wanna jump to just I do wanna do that, I don't know, we have to talk about it. We're gonna explain to you what we wanted you to do, and then you're gonna decide if you wanna do it tonight or you wanna do it a different night, okay? Is again, if you remember when we very first came in, what we were just looking at is we're taking the temperature of the council and how you're feeling about these different areas. I'm not coming to you tonight and asking you to tell me yes or no on these positions. Because what actually does happen, if you'll remember, is we're going to bring you a tentative budget and we're going to bring it to you in May, and that's when the council gets to say, we're telling you what we're planning on doing along the way and what that might look like, and there's a lot in between, but it is the tentative budget level where you start disagreeing with what management ended up saying. But what I don't want to do is bring you a budget in May that you have to try to tear apart in 60 days. Okay, or 30 days.
So this
or
is
whatever
all
that
the
looks like.
ask. Then it's going to
So
get
we're
whittled
showing
down.
you all the asks because we want you to know what's out there and what we're doing inside to try to figure out how we make this work. And so when I talk to Brandon and I say, what's an alternative? It's not because Brandon doesn't need every single one of these. It's because Brandon knows we can't fund everything that we can. And so we want to know what can we do that still moves us forward with where we're at. Because it's not just the planning department, right? You see all the divisions that are coming in there, and we're going to try, and it's not just personnel. this is personnel, but you're gonna have just inflationary costs for materials and supplies that are taking place. How many miles of road did we add last year, you know, with the new subdivisions that come in that are part of our maintenance plan? Okay, so we're looking at really like tiny snippets, and what we wanna know is, in some ways, is what feels like a high and a medium and a low priority in terms of just general categories as we're trenching things along, so that we make sure we're trying to stay aligned with this general higher, right, out of the cloud vision, not in the detail vision.
Yeah, that would also be helpful, is
Yeah.
to
So,
high, medium.
Yeah.
so while we're on this page and this topic, I'm going to derail just for a minute because I need some guidance. And I think I've only talked to maybe 2 of you, but, and again, you don't know this is coming, but I think Brad does. There is a position that's not on here that's like ready to go right now, so we're not talking about next year's budget, but I need council's guidance. And I'm going to call it the top position that Brad's trying to move forward on. It's already funded, but I know council's got some super sensitive feelings about what Todd, I mean, Todd's a unicorn. He did 10 different things, and we're not real sure what they were, but they were all
And he
over.
put birds in a freezer, I mean. We're not gonna be able to find something else.
And we're not talking chicken and turkey.
I need Brad to explain to us what he's looking for that may or may not be on this list, and then how is this list maybe taking some of those responsibilities, because the council's worried about is someone still taking care of the fence? Is someone, I see open space, right, technician, but what a percentage of that was Todd's job? And I help them understand what we get asked a lot, and you know by who's replacing Todd.
Everybody. So you need like a Mary Poppins plus a Crocodile Dundee all in the same room?
I just got an email 40
What part of
minutes
him was Mary
ago
Poppins?
from
The same group, yeah.
So here's the idea, I guess, or tell them what you want to do. And
So what we were thinking is we're trying to figure out how to best structure this, right? And I think before with Todd's position, it was really to like move an open space division out and have it like a standalone division. What we've talked about internally in trying to adjust this is trying to roll the parks, open space, and forestry areas back together and utilize the funding that was Todd's position and go after a parks manager. And so, and just to give you context, I think the way that, and Ben could speak to this and tell me if it's follows the guideline, but he kind of had a structure, and the way that I visualize this in the future and the way we're building towards is, I feel like our manager positions, a lot of them are going to end up being like our division heads one of these days. They're going to be more inclined with the budget, responsible for the spending, some of those
Like
things.
actual managers?
Like, yeah, like they're actually going to, like, we will definitely work with them and facilitate a lot of things that happen on everything in between. But
Brad's trying to find his replacement.
But I feel like that's the accountability, and that's the role step that I was alluding to earlier when I was discussing is you have to clarify some of these things as you develop it out. So trying to utilize the funding that was for Todd's position, but to fill this parks manager position and then put these supervisors underneath the parks manager and find somebody that we can grow and build to help us for our parks to be successful. And what that position looks like is there's planning coordination with development as it comes in. This is like budget oversight and spending for all these divisions that are underneath it. They're going to have to take on some of the roles with the open space and the wildlife corridor, and you need someone that's an office person or somebody that can facilitate those things. Like, I don't know how Todd had his hands in so many things in so many places. We've had tons of emails come in from all these people with all these projects, but it's wild. But
So we need like 8 people to replace Todd.
But I think that we're really trying just to establish that core and that direction, and we really see I look at our manager positions as like going to be those future division heads, and then these supervisors will kind of be over areas, and then your leads are like your crew leads that are going to go out and lead a few people out in the field to get this task done. And so you kind of mentioned it, like, we need some people in the office to facilitate things. We need people in the field to facilitate things, and this is developing and building that structure. And that's the organizational structure that we've tried to develop, and that I feel like we've been pretty successful in kind of structuring it out. we just have a lot of young and new employees, but we feel like that would be a good move, and it's no additional funding right now.
Yeah, so he can pull the trigger right now on what we're calling a manager in the Parks Department, right?
That's what we'd like to do.
And it'd be fall under Zach, actually.
Yes.
But can he pull the trigger on that, and then kind of that workload's going to get split, maybe on some of these other positions, depending on what we fund?
Is this a council decision, or?
He's asking
It's
for
because
guidance.
it's already an FTE, but it was a open space manager, and we don't want to be.
So-
limited
But will
to
we be
open
able to
space.
use the same
Right,
planning
we
dollars
want
for
to
it?
be
No.
Under that.
I'm just
Now-
asking, like, in this
So,
specific
so
situation.
let me answer that. The answer is no. I can
Okay.
pull the trigger myself, but I
Okay.
don't operate that way. I want to know if you guys.
Okay,
if
I'm just
going-
curious if this is our role or.
I think we need
That's
a
the way.
parks manager. I'm in favor of that.
But
I don't want. This is a team effort.
the budget that it came out of before, because wasn't it part of the planning department?
We had
So
moved
we
it
could
over
use-
to open
okay,
space,
good.
but I want
Alright.
to talk about the planning side, because this was part of this conversation too, of, we want to be mindful that the council came forward and said, we want a wildlife, we want
I'm going to tell you what, this gives me a lot of
wildlife planner.
consternation, so I'll
Okay.
speak to that. I don't think we should move in this direction because I think we're being disingenuous to the constituents that we made some promises to work to protect that wildlife corridor and to manage our open spaces in a cohesive way. We took great pride in hiring the very first environmental wildlife biologist as a city employee. And we called him an environmental planner, which he was not. I mean, he wasn't a planner, he was a wildlife biologist who helped us to evaluate things that would impact our ability to maintain the vision that we put together to maintain these open spaces and to protect that wildlife corridor. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I know that many of our residents are, perhaps a fringe group. So I want to say that, and there might only be a few of them. But I feel like this is waving the white flag on that, and that we're setting it aside. And maybe it's just a set aside, Mayor, for a period of time. But I don't want to see it get lost in the shuffle. That's what I'm concerned
But what I'm
about.
hearing is that it's not so much about that position, but I want, and maybe you didn't explain it well, but how are we going to make sure that those promises are still fulfilled? So then tell us what employee is doing that job.
No
I don't
one at
think
this
it's-
point.
Well, nobody according to those people. But I think
So let me ask you the question: who's doing that? Maybe the staff can
that's
answer
what I'm
that.
saying. Maybe it's what is this open space technician the person that's going to manage?
But what skill set does an open space technician have to manage that?
But there's an
Mayor?
open space lead too.
So no, I'm with you. I'm saying, what is the plan to take care of that?
I think we need both. I think we need to get the parks manager because we need one.
I don't disagree
But
with that.
Yeah, so I
So the question is that what I'm hearing is how are we going to take care of the rest of what?
I think that the parks manager's responsibility is to figure that out.
And the real question is the
oh yeah, so
wildlife
hire that person so they
side.
can find the
Are we
other
going to
person.
go get another biologist?
You're talking about specifically who's
Maybe we don't need to
monitor the
if we have a parks
But maybe,
manager
but
that's
maybe you need to
responsible for
hire
that,
somebody from
when-
the Division of Wildlife Resources
maybe
or
again,
Natural
but we
Resources or
also
something.
maybe
right?
we don't need to. I mean, if we have somebody that's responsible for those things to evaluate, and that's their expertise, we're relying on them.
I think
to
you said the key word is what is their expertise, because I don't hear that that's one of their expertise as an open space technician or manager.
Well, I think it's two different things, and this is what I'm trying to sort out. You're talking about open space, and you're talking about wildlife.
No,
so who's the wildlife?
I'm not talking about either one of those. I'm saying when you have
Well, I
a
need
parks
to-
manager.
So I'm not understanding. Then you're talking about a wildlife person
So
specifically.
is the wildlife corridor a park? Let me ask that question.
It's part of our open space, and
But it's not a park.
So you think there should be a wildlife
I
division?
think-
Technically, it is though because we can use
It's
it's part of our
dedicated to the city and
regional.
it's fenced. It's
Yeah.
The goal
open
with
space.
The goal with the open space division was areas that are not parks, right? These open spaces, the corridor,
And
the
undeveloped
hills, and other things.
And so that
the
goes
question-
well with the wildlife corridor and all that, right? I think that all works cohesively.
But that's
A
what I'm
parks
asking. Are we talking
manager is
about
different.
corridor, or are we talking about the animals? Because you're talking about the animals.
And I'm talking about the whole plan.
Well, so
the
corridors in-
the coordination with DWR, do you have a skill set to coordinate with the DWR and to deal with mule deer migration? Because that's the purpose of that wildlife corridor. I mean, so do we have someone with that skill set?
I just think that Brad needs a parks manager. So ask for a parks manager, but stop calling it the Todd position. And then we work to find.
But your question is, are we going to monitor our wildlife? And I'm going to ask you a counter question. I agree. No one cares more about wildlife than me. I want to know, is that the city's job or is it the Division of Natural
That's
Resources?
what I was just going to ask.
Look, I think look, I may be a man on an island here and I recognize that, but I am not in a position where I feel like we should give up on that vision and just turn it over to an open space manager. I'm not there.
So is the question really who's going to coordinate with the DWR
Who's going to look after that? It's a very unique opportunity that the city has spent a lot of time and money already on in developing. Are we just going to turn our back on it and just let it become open space?
I don't know. Why are you assuming that that's the direction?
Because what we're asking to do is to take a position that's funded that has managed that very effectively in my mind, and we're going to turn it over to just a parks position. And for me, that's problematic.
I do want to say that one thing when we look at the perspective is what we've asked for was an environmental planner. And what we got was
a wildlife biologist.
Okay? And because we got a wildlife biologist, then it morphed into something else. If I was to hire an open space then what Todd became was the open space manager. If I was hiring an open space manager today, I wouldn't hire a wildlife biologist, right? Like it came with a certain skill set.
That's not what we were looking
for.
But
maybe now we need a wildlife biologist. Maybe having seen that.
So who would be an environmental planner? Who would help us plan for those things to evaluate?
That is part of this planning. That was the part that we were going to say is that with these planning managers we talked about, that's part of the conversation with Brandon.
So what skill set does that planner need to have to protect those environmentally sensitive areas?
That environmental planner area that we lost when Todd
And we can include that in the
I'm just saying, I don't think we should just step away from it.
Brett, I agree.
And then the two, right?
I'm agreeing with Councilmember Wright as well.
But that doesn't mean
maybe
that
I'm on the island here, but I'm just asking some. I want to ask some questions. Like, what haven't we already planned for to protect them? That's
So
missing.
much.
So what? Give me an example.
We just really scratched the surface of it.
What else do we need to protect?
The owls, the
But
kestrels,
here's
like
what-
all of that stuff is something that.
Can I rephrase it? Because I think I understand what I'm saying is, as a city, what I'm hearing is, as a city, it's our job to preserve a path forward, but it's the wildlife division's job to take care of the animal. That's not our job to take care of the owl and the deer. That's the division. But we preserved an opportunity for them to do their job. So we did preserve the opportunity for the rest of the people to do their.
So how are we preserving that going forward? Because it's not complete. It's not a project that's done.
Yeah, it's not
Did
done.
we do the plan? Did you guys end up adopting that remember?
It's not done. It's not fenced. It's not entitled on many pieces of property.
But that would continue, so those projects in terms of fencing and continuing would continue.
It sets us apart.
But I think so. Yes.
But the manager is the one, and then you have your.
Okay, so then to come back, because I agree with both y'all, right? I'm on both islands. I don't want to let that slide. I also don't know that it's our job, but what I'm now trying to put together to help everybody is I think we do need an environmental planner that will do more of the wildlife side and the open space manager that does the corridor. And they kind of have, the planner's going to observe the protection of our owls and the washes and whatever that is.
Right.
And that's, so then is
And the
that
goats,
currently assigned or
managing the
asked for
goats.
so that we can budget for it? Because if that's a priority, and then we have to rank the priority. But if that's a priority, then is it on this list? So
I just want to add some context. I've crafted kind of a general job description, and part of that parks manager position talked about wildlife, it talked about open space. Like, I don't think we're trying to forget it. And I think we want to see it move along. Is it going to move along the way that Todd's passion and drive is? I don't know. But if you put a job description out for a biologist, I don't know if we get one.
I think my question is this, Brad. Is it a priority or not? Because a parks manager, in my opinion, is not going to focus on this as a priority. When you have all of the parks and responsibilities that individual is going to be responsible for in our city, and that all falls under one umbrella, I think that this becomes the ugly redheaded stepchild that just gets ignored.
In all fairness, though,
Hidden Valley is going to get developed, and Todd was instrumental in working with Perry Homes and sort of holding Perry Homes accountable on several things. So we have a lot of that's going to be happening over the next decade, and it's hopeful to have a biologist that knows more than Perry Homes knows about these things.
And more than a planner or a parks director is going to know.
It is.
So, but in all fairness, Todd also did things that were way out of the realm of wildlife.
He acted
Like
on
he
behalf
was-
of third parties
Well,
a lot.
Yeah, but he also looked at all of like the orphan pieces of land and the encroachment and some of those things. And to me, that's more of the planner realm. So it's not like.
But those were secondary to what he did.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you'd have the biologist,
but
and
what
then
I'm
you could
saying
add
is
some
it's-
ancillary things to his.
So look, I've shared my opinion. It sounds like there's at
let
least
me take a
some
little
that
straw
feel the
poll so
same.
that we can get the staff some direction here. What I'm hearing is, and again, I'm going to use a little example. That I don't take a side, I don't care. When we talk about, you said a small group of people that we really care about wildlife, and I'm one of those guys or whatever. And then we also care about, we've got citizens that care about the open space and what we're doing. Is if we have to say who wants an open space manager compared to who wants a biologist, who are we servicing with the people? Because there are a whole bunch of people that also think we don't take care of our wildlife or our open space, and then others that say we're not taking care of our wildlife. Which one's a priority?
Well,
so the question is, then I'm looking for some direction. Are we going to move forward with 2 positions and hope it works, or are we going to at least do the manager and then try to fill that? What do you want us to do?
I think
So
it's
each
like you
person
hire
answered.
somebody with a primary role on the biology side, maybe a secondary open space. That seems like an easier skill set to achieve as a biologist than.
So you want to prioritize the qualification of biologists? They cost more money.
I think.
Let's hire a high school teacher.
I was going to say, from my perspective, I think if we do, here's how I feel about it. I think if we don't protect the opportunity now, it will evaporate.
Yeah.
And so I think it's key. And I'm not saying that managing our parks and managing the open space is unimportant, but I think if we even set this aside and we lessen the priority that it has had, and I have felt that recently because we don't have anybody that's really trying to motivate it or move it forward, right? We're just we're playing defense instead of offense. I think if we want this to be successful, we have to have someone who will take it on the offensive side and make it happen.
There's their primary focus, because there's lots of people within our staff that.
That's what I believe. I think that's what I believe. I'm one person.
So Zach, now I'm going to come back to your question just so you understand. This is why it's your job, and this is why I bring it. Because you can either defund the manager position and fund the biologist position. I need to know which one do you want to fund. So that's why the council. So do you want to fund a biologist, or do you want to fund an open space?
The question comes back to where we began with this, though. Which one is the priority?
I thought we always agreed.
The reality of it is
well, then ask for a straw poll, because I want to know which one we're funding.
Brad's asking for a parks manager because they need somebody to help manage our parks. Which how many times have we had people?
How many people?
Hang on. How many times have people come to City Hall and yelled at us about the parks?
It's funding. Great.
How many?
Well, I know, but
you guys. I mean, I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to you. How many times have we had people come yell at us about the wildlife corridor?
That was my point.
That were beyond a special interest group.
They haven't
No, there's
because
a
it's been
ton.
making progress.
Like the whole goat thing. I mean,
The point being, you have a special interest group. You have the rest of the citizens that are kicking our butts on parks all the time. So if we say, okay, the special interest group is more important than the bulk of the people are saying, why are we not doing this with our parks? Then who are we listening to?
I don't think anybody's saying that one. Can I say something really quick? I don't think anyone's saying that one is more
We're not
important than the
passionate about
other.
this. He's asking us to.
I understand, but what I'm trying to get to you is that I feel like there's different skill sets. We have to get the one, we need the other, and they're both important. We can't be without either one of them.
So then let me ask you this, because I think I've just got an idea of why this wouldn't solve it. Since I think wildlife, and I'm not saying I take sides, since wildlife could fall under a different organization,
It's not
why
going
wouldn't
to.
that special interest group be working directly with the DWR to ask for help in that?
We need somebody within our organization to advocate
they
for
in
it.
fact have, but from my perspective, if we don't take ownership of it,
They
we're going to lose that unique opportunity, and that's what I'm really trying to help us identify. Is that
But as a city-
it's a time and place opportunity, and if we don't take advantage of it, it's up to us. If we say no, then we say no.
Well, and a really good example
Is
is
it a personal
Harriman has
policy, though?
similar. Harriman,
It's a policy to create the outcome, because I
So
feel
that's what
like
I'm asking. What I'm hearing you say is that you need a policy in place to protect it. No one's disagreeing with that. And yes, we need to move forward with that. But Does a person accomplish that, or do we do a policy and tell the
I-
department to carry the policy out?
I think you have to have some advocacy, and I think if you give it to an open space manager, that you're not going to have a focused advocacy on it.
So I
That's
think
what
this is
believe.
maybe what I could offer, and this is what I'm asking if this would help. I think as mayor, you could say, we're not getting the help of the state, we're not getting the help of MAG, we're also not getting the help of the DWR. So if I need to spend all the time down there saying, we've got this corridor and you guys aren't doing anything, you're making us fund it, either give us some money
Yeah, push to
or
make it a
show
state
up.
park.
Should I be focusing on making sure that we have a little more advocacy from the DWR?
Well, you make a really good argument, because I think an environmental planner, I think a wildlife biologist that's on staff that represents Eagle Mountain City is really what he or she is they are our lobbyists to see that this project happens.
So what about an alternative option though? Like we've done, when we first brought our
I'm glad we
emergency.
opened this can of worms at the last
I
minute,
do want to
Mayor.
just make a request for where we're at.
'Cause I don't
just
wanna
with our
pull the trigger.
time, is if just this final thing, which is, does it at least solve something? Right now we have a vacant FTE that we desperately need to fill with a person. If
That's
I
why-
fill it
that's
with
why
a
I-
wildlife biologist today, it doesn't feel what our need is and doesn't feel that. Can we take this FTE and have it be a parks manager, but we immediately add a wildlife biologist that is to this list that is tracking forward that you guys are saying is a priority to continue the discussion for funding, or else you want us to hold this FTE blank? But that's where we're at.
Or do we
And if
get
we don't
paid to work
know,
on it?
then it's just going to be held
So if
blank.
it goes onto this list, what's as soon as we can get them hired?
July.
Well, you have to find a person
July?
to do it.
I'm comfortable with that, because we can post, it's gonna take a while to find that
It's
person
gonna
anyway.
take
Right.
So let's put the wildlife biologist on there, get the
Right, and it
parks
just
manager
becomes that is your
now.
priority one.
It's sounding like it's
It's
critical
gonna-
enough that it's gonna get
okay.
pushed through.
So this is the thing that I wanted to
And then you
ask.
can continue.
Could we hire someone that's like a graduate student at one of the universities that isn't like a full-time
We could
dealing
use
with their goats
You can,
to
but that's
start?
what we need
Could that
today.
be a start for us
Use
in
interns
the
every year,
meantime?
even if they turn over.
Look, I think it
No,
just
because I'm saying we want the
They're still
specialized
learning
skill
how to
set, and I don't know that that person exists. And maybe we can get more bang for our buck
but
by
we haven't
bringing
even
in.
tried to look.
Well,
Plus,
that's
that's
true too.
So,
But not
we're
that
going
many
to show
people.
you the next two slides. We're going to keep having a discussion about that, and the mayor will continue to discuss with you, and he'll do what his
Just because we have
mayor
three
role is.
conversations, I'm gonna
And-
give it right back to Kimberly to show these next two slides to move forward.
Go, baby, go.
Perfect.
You guys ready?
Okay.
All right, back at it.
We made it.
Is that really
Back to discussion.
How many did it narrow down
Just
to?
take that slide out.
What it narrowed down to.
So what we want to do is these. So we're going to send you with some homework, okay? And so that you know, every council meeting from this point forward, there'll be an item on the agenda that's at the back, the same place where you have your council things. It's called Fiscal Year 27 Budget Discussion. That we'll keep talking about things as things are coming along, and it'll all be based on how you're feeling that night. But we've got it. We've got some stuff that we can keep trekking forward.
Cool.
We at least have 2 more meetings, but our next 2 ones are really going to be heavily focused on capital outlay. Because again, that is really where we want more of your impact and input on are these projects and things that are moving forward. And so when we showed you we had 37 requests, the next 2 slides show you internally from our initial reviews, you'll see some that say advance and hold. These are our internal that we're looking at of saying these are the ones that we want to continue having discussions as we're trekking through. And the other ones that we're saying we want to hold based on as we're looking, again, even the ones we're saying advance, I'm not saying I have the money to even fund those. I'm simply saying that as we have to do some narrowing down, that in meeting with people and talking about and trying to identify what our needs are and knowing it needs to be a blend, we can't just, I don't recommend that we throw all of our money only at one area, that we're trying to look at how we can keep moving these things along, that we've narrowed down the 37 to around
22 because we got 7
Okay,
from
around
the...
22 of what we're saying we want to keep advancing. Again, we won't, I can tell you right now, we can't fund 22, okay? It just means that,
Not at the
and it doesn't
current
mean
level
that,
of
again, that the
revenue.
council
You
won't
okay?
be able to decide later that regardless of what
tired.
we're tracking and doing, that these other positions are a priority. We're letting you know from our budget committee standpoint, our administration, the mayor, Ben, these are the ones that we're going to continue to move forward with and try to look for. So when we talk about looking at like a city attorney or something like that, we start saying, okay, if this is one we're tracking forward, I gotta say, what are the things, Marcus, are you hoping to help? Okay, this is gonna be helping with the land use type things, great. Now I'm gonna start looking at where's my land use revenues come from. What are the fees that might be associated with that we need to look at to regenerate some potential revenue that helps? Okay, there's a lot of work that is gonna be done, and as part of that is that funding source for us internally. So sometimes when we're looking at tracking forward, that's part of it too, is where can I bring money in that comes with this position to fund it? So there may be some things you go, well, why are you choosing to advance this and not that? It's because I either have a
may be an
dedicated resource,
opportunity.
so look at streets. I have a dedicated resource to fund that streets division. But the conversation with the council has to be that whatever money I take for that, that's coming out of these sales tax dollars for transportation that funds like our maintenance on the roads, and then also we put it over to capital projects at the end of the year, whatever didn't get utilized, and it's still earmarked only for roads. But I'm taking that and saying I'm funding these operations. It's ongoing, it's okay, but they're coming with a funding source that allows us to like bring some of these forward. I know you don't have the whole picture, and that's part of it, right? Like, what are these funding sources? What do they look at?
I'll be happy to give you the information I'm
I
asking,
know,
brother.
and
This is
that the full kind of picture and the information it really does. It's a lot of the fullness you're not going to see until the tentative budget comes forward, because I can't have a conversation today about what the fullness looks like.
It's
It
going to
takes
take
us
some.
4 months
It's
to
going to
put
take
stuff
time for us to
together. That's
digest
right.
it, though. If you give it to us at
That's
that
right.
point, it's too late.
That's right, and so that's why we're having these big discussions on what we
I'm not sure
consider
if you
to be
understand what I'm
topics.
saying, Kimberly. I'm
I
saying
do.
it takes you 4 months to go through it, then you
I know.
hand it to us, and you're
Right.
saying digest it in this meeting.
And part of that is that I'm asking a level of expectation and trust on, again, from the council. Your job is, you're right, to appropriate and to do that. And our job internally is to say, this is what, as an administrative level, we're saying is necessary to further the operations and what that cost is to do that. And then you either are saying, that's my priority, it's not my priority. But in terms of how some of that money is, like we don't have the time to train everybody up to be an expert, and that's why you have, and it's not me running the show and making the decisions, but how many hours a week right now do we have in meetings that are dedicated specifically to the budget, Terrence?
A lot.
More than
Okay.
at least
So-
5.
Okay, like every week we have groups that are coming together, and it is big, and it is. I'm not gonna be able to give you all the information, but I do wanna know what are the things that are most important that are that comfort level. But I am gonna push back a little bit about what the role of budgeting is with the council and where I need you to have your vision at. And if you have specific concerns, then we're gonna come in and meet. I'm gonna say, Rich, come on in. Let's sit down, let's talk about it. What do you want to know? And we'll have some more of those conversations.
I don't feel like I can ask the questions in that. I need to be able to digest what's in there, and then I'll have questions.
Right.
If I don't have the ability to do that, then you're saying, we've done all the thinking for you, now just say yes or
So,
no.
not doing all the thinking for you, but I have done all the thinking for you in terms of balancing out, like the books are saying. If
It
this
sounds
is your
like
priority,
you're still whittling this down
yes,
and
like
you're
we're
trying to
early
figure
on,
that out.
right? We're
We'll
early
get that.
on. Yes.
How many FTEs did we hire last year? I'm just curious, like, as a new
21?
person.
No, I think
13.
13. Yeah, the year
13.
before we started out with
We got 36 requests last year, and then we fund, yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at
13.
maybe like 13 hires
Kimberly,
next
how
year.
soon will that information, do you plan to give them that information, know that they're asking?
Well, the reality is, from that, you have to see the whole picture, and you get that on the first budget meeting in May.
Can't
That's
we,
when the
like-
tentative budget comes to the council, and then that's where we start saying again, you guys have this time frame of you're meeting, you're digesting, we're having these special meetings, whereas you're looking at it, you have more questions about this, and we're bringing it in. But it's not going to make sense because you don't have the full picture. And we had 2 months that we didn't have special meetings that we normally would have had meetings with the council. A January, a February, okay? So we are on the fast pace, but I don't want to dismiss what your concerns are, and I do want to make sure, Councilmember Wood, that I am respectful of what your needs are and what your questions and your desires are, and that you
I
don't
just think
feel
that
like
we've
we're
proven as a
just
council
not-
that we want to look at the information, we want to digest it, and then we're going to ask very specific questions. There is nothing that we evaluate that we're like, oh, why don't you give us one paragraph and we'll figure it out from there. We're saying give us the contract, give us the master development agreement, give us the bills. We're going to read through all of those things so that we can have educated conversations about it instead of saying, okay, we've done all of this, now all we really need you to do is just say, based on the evaluations that we made, are you okay with that?
That's the tentative budget. How many pages are in the tentative budget? And where we go and every department is identifying and providing the background of what these changes are and what they are. But in terms of that timeline, it's the first council meeting in May that the budget process from the state statute is now it's the council's. But we don't want to wait till that. We're trying to make sure that we're aware, but I can't paint that. It's not gonna function that way. But
So I understand what you're asking. Can you give us an example of like the meetings that you have? What information could we glean from some of the meetings you have to give council a glimpse into that before May 1st meeting?
So what it would be is like, we give you this list and it includes, this is what the cost of all these positions are now, right? So you can start seeing what those numbers are for that. When we won't know till later. But regardless if you have the price, you don't know how much money is available to go towards it.
What
right?
we're looking at
You're
tonight,
not
this
gonna-
is just a reflection
This was to say,
of where you're at.
That's right.
Okay.
And
we
then
still got to whittle
to
it
be
down.
looking at and then saying, we want you to start looking at this and digest it. And the thing that we didn't do tonight that was the next item was, of these items that we've done here, we wanted you guys to have an opportunity to do a little thing where you have your little dots or your marks and they're saying, according to you, what is you say is a high, medium, and low, but not because you know what the job is or what the position is, but in those categories of my priority is quality of life, this or that blend, and how you feel like this is a higher priority or a medium or a low, and then we have a conversation with how the council's feeling collectively so that we can keep moving things forward.
We'll get there.
I think one of the things though that's hard about that, because I've been with 3 different finance departments, and David, when he did it, was like we'd get our little spreadsheet and we'd all score what we thought was most important. And like some park improvement won, but the bay over at the Public Works building didn't. And that was probably the most significant thing that was needed. But it wasn't sexy. We didn't know anything about it. So like I think asking us to score these is similar to that. I don't want these jobs to end up being like a homecoming queen votes. Like, and I think the deliberative process, even though it's painful and long, is what this council needs. And we need to hear from you guys too, but I'm hesitant to just vote like that because we make different choices based off of the things that the people around us say.
And it's context.
Well, that's why I
really.
wanted to do it together. Yeah. The point was, it wasn't you're taking it home and you're doing it. Right. The point was, we scored it and then we could have a conversation just like we did with the beginning one.
Yes.
About what this looks like. And the scoring isn't, because I know we'll get that, like, well, how do I know what the department needs most? How do I know that? That's not what I'm asking at this council level. I'm saying these positions will help further quality of life.
Yeah.
These ones are going to further public safety initiatives. These ones are going to do that, and trying to bring it back into, because if we just fund it and we only look at it as a streets operator, this is where we look back at those council priority lists, and we look back at those things and you say, why aren't they going anywhere? Okay? And we want to get the connection, right? We want everything to come together. So
If you could, just on the
it's going to
next
take
one.
us years too, right? It's not going to be perfect. And as you know, for those of you who've been here, we've made a lot of changes in the budget process
It's
in the last 5 years. Okay? And we will
Actually, before I
continue.
send
And
this-
it's progress, not perfection. But we do want to know this. You feel like this wasn't useful to you, and you'd rather have it look at something else. Great.
No, I think this is
Talk about it.
useful, but it's not complete. I think that's what I'm hearing Councilmember Wood saying, right? Like you
There's
want
nothing
more.
to evaluate here.
So the
I mean, that's the reality. For you, I think you think that. But I look at this and what do you want me to evaluate? There's nothing to evaluate here. There's no context. There's nothing for me to say, yeah, you know, the parks crew lead, that's an advance. What am I supposed to do with that? How are you evaluating how you're choosing what these are? There's man hours. That's what you should be picking, that you need to have a parks crew lead. There's this many man hours that need to take place in this department. We have this many people. There are this many hours in a week. We're deficient by 13 man hours. That's simple math. But you're wanting us to look at something that's arbitrary. I'm not going to score something that means nothing to me, because what do you want me to put up there? I like that you put full-time in advance. That doesn't mean anything to me.
So our side of it that we're being asked to do is arbitrary, but what I think I hear them saying is that each of the department heads have weighed this out and they're bringing the recommendation to us. Do you need to hear from the department heads the reasoning why this?
I'd rather them say we're deficient by 13 man hours.
So you need more
by department. This is what our problem
data.
is. We have guys that are working an additional 25 hours overtime because we don't have enough people. That makes more sense to evaluate that.
Is there a way for us to get that, like, from an HR perspective or for department?
Because that's how you should be evaluating people.
I'll tell you that a full-time position is 2,080 hours. Every one of those requests is a department telling me they're deficient by 2,080 hours.
They're telling you that they're deficient by 5,000.
So maybe I can shed a little light on it from a slightly different perspective, and you tell me, Councilmember, what if this at least touches on some of what your frustration may be, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it's really difficult to sit in this seat and to see that each of these departments, we have 37 people that we need. I mean, I don't think our departments would ask for them if they didn't need them.
Agreed.
So I think you got to start there, because I don't think we're just pie in the sky willy-nilly, here's what we'd like, and gosh, in a perfect world, this is what we'd like. So I think the question for me becomes one of, what are the goods or services that we're unable to provide that we should be providing by not funding these positions? That for me is the equation. Is even man hours for me doesn't make a ton of sense, because yes, we may be deficient 2,080 hours per full-time employee for those different areas, but my question is, so what's happening? We're not taking care of the parks in the way that we are, so we're not mowing the lawns, we're not filling the holes, we're not dealing with the voles or the gophers. That would be hyper
We've
helpful.
got a finance person that's working this many
because
overtime
then
hours
you
and
can
we're
look at it
running
and say, okay, if we say no to these parks employees, what we're really saying is we're going to live with the holes, we're going to live with the non-maintenance or lesser maintenance schedule in the finance department or in the utility billing department, right? We need somebody to process these things. Well, we're just going to deal with customers that are unhappy because we don't have the resourcing to take care of their needs. We need 3 more people in that. For me, that's the evaluation I'd like to be able to give you. And I agree with Councilmember Wood. This doesn't help, except it gives you an idea of perhaps where we would like to see priorities. But we don't know what you guys know.
Yeah. So is it possible to have the department heads come in and explain each one of these, which I know will take longer?
We've submitted basically that information, almost exactly what you're asking within a short version, probably with our request.
So
for the budget committee to review and analyze.
we touched only briefly, I think, last time in maybe our planning meeting at the retreat. We skipped through a bunch of slides. What we tried to do is show you a little bit of where we want to go with the budget process, which is our metrics, our service levels, the programs.
Yeah.
If we don't have the money for this, this is where that service level is. So we want you to know that's the trajectory where we're headed, but we can't go from where we are today to that tomorrow.
And Kimberly, I'm not being critical. I think you're doing fabulous, but that's where I'd like to see us get.
Yes.
Because that would be easier for me to evaluate.
That's what, we're not going to be able to provide that to you this year, and I won't be able to provide that full picture next year. But what you'll be able to see is that this is where we're headed. That's why, again, the staff who is here can talk about how many hours have they put into the budget process that for us internally, we started in October this year.
It's been a very thorough.
Okay, whereas normally we wouldn't even started it until January. And we've said we need a 5-year needs assessment. We need to start identifying what are your service level metrics. We need to start identifying how do we determine if this program is actually meeting our objective. So not just those
Kimberly,
hours.
for me it would be, because then what it does is it gives me some buy-in into it, so that when I get a utility billing complaint, or I hear someone that complains about my water meter's not reading correctly, or my this or my that, and I can relate it back to, yeah, because we couldn't fund the 2 or 3 positions that we needed to because we're not able to change those out. it gives me a better and more thorough picture of the why, and it helps me to make better decisions.
Kimberly, are they gonna get like those, are they gonna be able to look at the assessments we did and all of those things?
So when we do our service level, when we talk about our program, we do that, then that picture, yes, will all come together in regards to that. In the budget book right now, it has some metrics that have been identified that we've been starting to gather data and stuff like that. Was our goal this year to have all that be with this budget? It absolutely was.
Have you had enough people to do it? No.
Okay, and so,
Yeah,
again,
that's hard.
if you ask Brad and you ask Zach, when did they do all this work? It wasn't Monday through Thursday, it wasn't during their 40-hour week.
Evenings.
On Fridays, everybody's online on Fridays.
Angela came
Off.
in last Friday in order to do the training and the things that we have that are mandatory, harassment things and stuff like that.
So let me say this, okay? And I just want to make this clear because that's frustrating to me in this regard. We're sitting on a 35% fund balance in our general fund, and we're not aware that by sticking that in a savings account and letting it bear interest, that we're ignoring these other needs, and that we're requiring you guys to have a Friday meeting. That's not fair to you, and it's not fair to us to not be aware of that. And I just think those are the things where we're either going to let our guard down and trust each other or we're not. And I feel like we're moving in that direction. And I'm hopeful that we can get there where we can just speak plainly and that we share information freely and realize that we're on the same team.
Well, one of the things I'm just sitting here thinking, and this is not a cut to anybody, but we can't keep kicking things down the road and saying maybe we can do it in 2 years. If it's something that needs to be done and it's going to make us better, fund it. Take the money out of...
It's the time, though, I think.
I understand, but maybe it's not Kimberly that's the one's doing it. Maybe we need to bring outside help in to accomplish that task because it makes us more nimble. It gives us better information, or perhaps it enables us to see better, even to what Ben's point was with the staff audit.
Yeah.
If we keep kicking it down the road, what's changed in 2 years? We're doing the exact same thing. We haven't improved our position. So if you need it, then let's talk about how we can fund it so you can do the things that you need, that we need to make decisions. But in 2 years, what's going to change?
Do you feel like in your tenure you can look back and see that things are better than they were?
There's
in the
no
beginning?
question, Kimberly, but
100%.
there's also, if the standard needs to be here, what is going to change in 2 years if we haven't done anything to get us to that point? Other than incremental changes because you guys are overwhelmed and we can't fund the positions.
I want to go back and I want to think about what is the message that I have pushed every year?
I'll tell you what it is because I've supported it. We need to raise property taxes.
I don't
I've
have an
heard that.
expenditure
I'm in
problem
the
at
same
Eagle
place
Mountain
too.
City. I have a revenue problem at Eagle Mountain City.
I totally, that's
Okay.
the genesis of what I'm
You guys
saying.
have been 100% supportive.
Did I guess
of
right? Did I
everything,
guess
saying,
right?
We want you to do it.
Did
We
I
want
guess
you to do
right?
it. You did. Okay. We support you looking at new technology and new software and new that. We're supportive of all that stuff. We know you're supportive of that, but I still can't move
We need
it
to do
forward
it
if
with
I
our
don't have the money to
pocketbooks.
pay for it.
And fund balance is one-time money
Right.
versus property taxes.
We know that.
So
I just,
that goes to the next part of the discussion though, Kimberly. So then tell us what that number is so that we can make an informed decision about raising taxes. But if you are saying, oh, wait until we get to this point and we don't know the breadth of the problem, then how are we supposed to go and say, you know what, I need to go to the citizens and say, guess what, we are underfunded in our departments.
Yeah.
It's creating an underservice problem that is getting worse, not better, because we're growing. And in order for us to do this, we need to increase revenues, either through economic development, which is not coming at the rate that we need it to, or it has to be taxes. There's only two ways of doing it.
136% is what you kept telling us at the retreat, right?
Yeah.
To just break even with.
That was to just break
Just-
even with what we're already doing, not adding the 7 positions the
Just
sheriff's
join
trying
that
to ask
size.
for.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
if you don't, the people
The
online can see.
number depends on what you want to do. So I
they're all there.
Do you understand
They
why
love
I'm
us.
asking what I'm asking?
I keep getting texts from staff
They're getting
members.
frustrated, but I'm like, how can I help you?
You know how many people
So-
I hope I framed it in.
But here's the other thing. I think the other piece is it's pretty clear that we're headed down the road where we're gonna have to make some tax adjustments. we can't wait until May to start peppering that information and educating. I think Zach's video about like, holy crap, property taxes haven't been raised forever. Like, that was a really good one, but we need to start doing way, way more, and it needs to be all 6 of us. So,
Farmers market.
yeah, but the problem
That's
is
way too late.
we'll pass the budget before.
Yeah.
But I think that's what, we hear you. We just need the information we need so we can start moving forward. I think we all get that that's probably where we're headed, is a tax increase, right?
Yeah, I mean, how else are we going to raise revenue?
Right, so and maybe what we get is, this is how much money and a change we need to make
So
to be
that's
able
the
to fund
point of,
all of this.
if we don't know the breadth of what it is.
Yes.
If we don't know
Now I
how bad
understand.
it really is, then how can we go and say we need to raise the taxes this amount?
Do you know
Because
what the
now we
dollar amount is
understand
for all
by
of it?
department what our problems are.
So
Just
if
staff
we were
hours.
starting, okay, so if we're talking only again like property tax, we're doing that kind of thing. We are covering 1/3 of the existing sheriff's contract.
That's the kind of information
Okay,
that
we're
we
covering
need to.
1/3 of that. And so right now, we need to earn another $4 million, $4, 5, 6, $7 million to cover the existing contract. Now they've asked for 7 more employees, okay? So it really does, so I can come, and again, our next council meeting, a giant agenda item, we can talk about that. It will be before you've been able to see, again, the sheriff's stuff, before they're asking, but what we're talking about is not any additional ask for them. We're saying, if you're willing to start talking about a conversation to fund with property tax this, what it does is it frees up that resource that we're using to do some of these other things.
I honestly don't feel like there's much choice in this.
So can I show you a few slides that I just prepared a few minutes ago? Okay, this is 2025 property tax rate countywide, all cities. Eagle Mountain versus the average, which is in red, so Eagle Mountain, yellow on the right. And just so you had comparison and you could try to see what that means from Saratoga Springs versus Eagle Mountain. Wait, just let me finish, okay? Thank you. Saratoga Springs has $6.197 billion in valuation. We have $5.404 billion in valuation. So the difference is only 14.7% in our city size. And granted, we're probably going to catch up that with $1 billion of investment of QTS and whatnot. So that's pretty good. But they're growing too with their tax base as well. But what the big eye-opener is, this is their tax rate. This is our tax rate. We're 87.1% lower than Saratoga Springs in the tax rate. And this has jumped out at me today when Mayor Karn mentioned in his speech at the chamber that Saratoga Springs' property taxes is $5.7 million. Well, that jumped right out at me in his speech because ours is $2.8 million. The difference is basically we're 101% lower than Saratoga Springs in what it receives. Now, if you go back to this other slide.
Wait, no, hang on. Don't change.
I can send it to
This
you.
is
I
a
took
new-
a
this
picture
is a new
already.
I can
Facebook
share
video
this whole thing
coming
with you. I'll email it if you like.
It's good for us to have it on our phone so we can
Yeah.
stay up all night staring at it.
We won't get it on the email, but we'll take a picture and use it all day long. But I guess my question, when you get to it.
Who needs
go-
to sleep?
Thank you. I just want to, because it's so hard to get through discussions because we all have comments and questions. So let me keep going through it. So this is city to city. This is our comparison city to city. And you can see that Saratoga Springs is below average, significantly below average compared to the average. Okay? Now, the secondary question that everyone's going to say is, well, where do we stand with UFA? If you throw UFA into it, then you're comparing the total dollars collected or the total dollars paid by our residents compared to other residents. So we are just barely over the county average, full to full, okay? And if you compare it that way. Now, what does that mean to us and whatnot? So if I go back, hold on, I'll wait till you get it.
I got it. You're good.
You're good?
In your calculations, are you including their public safety as in their police services in that as well? And ours is not in there, right?
This is the.
Oh,
this
ours is in there.
This is the rate that our residents pay for every taxing entity.
Okay.
So the total tax bill.
School district.
School district, everything.
Okay.
Which is different, Nebo versus Alpine. You know, this is a total package countywide. Now, if you compare it a
I'm
different
living in
way,
Woodland Hills.
this is a different thing to share, and this is looking at those same charts, but in tax rate and throwing in the green column there. So if we were to look at city versus city, you can see that, for example, Saratoga Springs is 82.8% higher in their rate than our rate. So Vineyard is 610% higher. Woodland Hills 537%. Provo, tax centers, right? High tax base. American Fork, they're 200% higher than us in our rate valuation. So when we say we want to raise our rates 200%, we're really not out of the realm. Now, if you do it full city to full city, that's this one on the right-hand side, and you can see what that explanation is. So one more thing to share and consider is if Eagle Mountain had the rate of these other cities, how much more would we generate? So if we had Saratoga Springs rate, we would be generating $5.2 million per year if we had been, over the years, getting us to where we should be, maintaining what Saratoga Springs had maintained versus what we had. Or if we had maintained the county average, we would be having $6.6 million in revenue. And if you look at $6.6 million, well, guess what? Our public safety is $8.7 million. Saratoga Springs public safety is 6.3. Now, I totally understand this is not apples to apples, because Saratoga Springs Police is just for their police and their benefits and things like that. They likely have their buildings, their fleet, their insurance, their HR, their legal paid elsewhere. So I don't think our rate, I think that $6.3 million from Saratoga Springs is probably closer to the 8.7 that we're paying to the county today. So they're not fully funding their public safety with their dollars either. But what's the difference between Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain?
UFA.
No.
They also have sales tax.
They have our sales tax.
Yeah.
They have their sales tax and our sales tax because we all spend our money there. So they don't have to have the property tax as high as us. In all reality, our property tax rate should be like Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills has no businesses. They overtly go back to, Woodland Hills has a priority of wanting to stay a bedroom community with no commercial development. They want to be the high end, that's what they want. But the residents accept the fact that because they have no business, they have no base, that they have one of the highest property tax rates in the county in order to fund the services that they want. And so, and they, not only that, but they have higher valuations because they're high-end homes and all that up in Woodland Hills. And so, but that's what you would expect is those who would have the highest property tax rate would be those cities that don't have the highest economic base or sales tax rate. But what you're not seeing is that wise cities actually have both. They have a high property tax rate and they have a high sales tax rate because they have a diversified income portfolio that makes it so that if all of a sudden the economy tanks, their property taxes are still funding their corporate services.
Yeah.
Does this help you in all a little bit in understanding why
You're
we
speaking
have a
my
revenue
love
problem?
language right now.
This is why we have a revenue issue. This is why it's not an expenditure issue.
We don't disagree.
And 100%, you all want, here's the thing that Kimberly and I am facing and whatnot, and Terrence and whatnot, is we are sitting back and saying, we don't have enough money to fund all 37 positions last year. So we only funded 13 positions last year. And that meant that one of two things have happened. Because there is a scarcity of resources, we've cut it down. And who makes that decision to cut it down? Well, the council wants to make that decision because you want to be in the nitty-gritty. But you're not in every single one of these meetings, and if you were, you would not have full-time jobs. You would be living here like they are, and they are already living here way beyond 40 hours a week. So you can't have what you want. What Kimberly is saying is, trust us. We have this information, but Kimberly and myself and Terrence and whatnot, we have to say, okay, this is the amount of money we have. This is the request from all of the department heads. The department heads, we have scarcity of resources. Where do we prioritize them? And because we have been in all those meetings, we are asking you to trust us to do that. But I think what you're feeling, and then maybe what happens in the reality of budgeting, is that all the departments solicit you quietly and say, hey, our requests aren't getting in front of you. You're not seeing that. And that creates a greater level of distrust because we're whittling it down before it even gets to you. when on all reality, we should all be on the same page saying, you know what, all 37 positions are needed. How do we fix the revenue issue so that we don't have the expenditure issue? Because if we live in the constant world of doing it the same way we always do it, we will continually. It's just like your argument that if we don't, if we're going to get behind, it was Brett's argument. If we don't fund 5.9% or whatever and give the employees what they had last year, we're going to go backwards. Well, guess what? We only funded 13 positions last year. We already went backwards, and we're already in the mindset that we're going backwards this year. And so it brings me full circle to, if you are going to solve this problem, it has to be revenue. And we do recognize that the if-come is real. I mean, you can't walk out by QTS and not see what's coming out of the ground and go, okay, our problems are going to be solved. So the problems we have right now are temporary. And you know what? Next year, Jarrett and Aaron and everybody else, they're all going to be more trained than they are this year. And the year after that, they're going to be more trained up than they are the prior year. So all of this is going to keep getting better. And you're asking for trust, you're asking for more information. We want to give you everything. And all of us have been here day after day, probably somewhere between 12 and 16 hours every day this week, just so you know. And we're happy to do it. Nobody's complaining. And they're all here because they want to make sure that you're hearing them with these needs. Because, and Kimberly doesn't want to be the bad guy, but somebody has to be the bad guy that has to make the decision of, you know what, we just can't.
So what's the process, Ben, to move it forward? I mean, what's the process to move forward? We talked about this. How do we
What's the
advance
timeline
that?
I think what would make you all feel better is if you had an evening or a time where, and you're all pressured for time because this is the next thing. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. How do I share again?
Just click here, share. I want to say this. I absolutely believe that we are headed to the promised land, and I mean that.
Yeah.
I think the decisions that are being made are going to reap tremendous benefits for our citizens. But I think we've been slow to act generally, and that's not lobbied at anybody.
That's not any of your faults.
And I'm not throwing that at anybody else. I think each elected official and those previous municipal employees have made the very best decisions with the information that they had at the time to move us to this place. But this is our time, and you got to own it.
We've lived lean for the entire existence of our city, and that's why we're here. And nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just that we're all trying to do it the way we've always done it, which is we have scarcity resources. How do we get by? Because this is the retreat items that you guys all asked for, and I try to just do some lumping and some prioritization. I don't know if these are the right order. You guys can decide that. What I'm getting at is these are the things that are all urgent. Add on top of it the fact that we actually do need to spend time on this budget and get more information to you. I think what you want to have is an evening where each department head shares their story behind each one of these needs so you can understand them. But I think what you're hoping is that when you hear that, you'll be able to prioritize them. But I think
it's not even that, Ben. It's
but
if you can tell us what you need, then we can go and say we need to raise taxes. But if we have no information, that's a blind request that you're not going to take it.
Right.
We are.
Right.
I don't care about being reelected. That's not the issue.
Right.
We have to tell somebody why we justify 230% increase. For me to go and say, well, we took a poll and
right.
so that we prioritize these 4 things. That does not play well with they need to know that we looked at it and said, look, here's what the streets department is asking for. We're deficient by this much money. In the finance department, we're deficient 4 people, so we have 3 people trying to do a budget and still run the city.
Right.
So if you want us to be team players, and we want to be, and go after the tax money, which I think everybody here is in the place of, just tell us how much we need to do, give us the justification for it so we can go do the hard thing, so we're not waiting for 2 years to fix the problem that we need to fix now.
So let's do 2 things. And this may not be comfortable for Kimberly, but let's do 2 things. Let's give you the requests that have come in, the write-ups for every single one, so you can have it in advance and you can read it in advance. And then let's have one more meeting where we invite every department head in to share their reasonings, not just what was written, but you can
Their
ask them some
reality.
questions.
Is there
behind it.
a value to the requests? When they ask for it, is there a dollar amount
Oh,
that's
yes.
being put?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, if you can do that, you can show us what our revenue is.
Sure.
Put the restrictions on what can be spent on each of the departments.
We'll do that half of it.
But
The
I'm just
revenue
saying, if
side.
you can at least show us that, and they're asking for 55% more than the revenue that's allowed through whatever the funding sources are. Now we can go to each other and okay, now we can't hide from this anymore.
Well,
And then it really isn't a good discussion with you. It's the five of us going to each other. All right.
If
Now we need to. Well, he's not going to vote on it, but yeah, he's going to take it in the face because you're the first guy, right?
Well, but you just exponentially change that discussion. So it's one thing to share here's all the requests are and here's how much money, and we can go through that and you can figure it out, you can listen to it and all that, and we can even provide you the justifications per fund and all that. But if you are in the weeds of the funds and where the buckets are coming, and in the weeds of the employees at the same time, that can get really challenging.
You don't need to
really
give us
fast.
line items. We need to know by department what they're asking for, what they're budgeted for. So if it's streets, then they get to use impact fees for that, so that we understand you're deficient by this percent and this money. So now we can come and say, okay, here's the problem. These are all needs that they're asking for. Nobody is disputing that streets department needs this much money, and we're giving it up all of those things that we keep hearing people say. Why are our streets this, this, and this? Or why are our parks this, this, and this? So now we can go to them and say, we've evaluated and we've heard everything that you've said, and we've had the staff bring to us what the actual needs are right now. We're deficient by this amount, so we are going to do a truth in taxation to evaluate how we can get to the level of service that we expect in the city that's at least on the par with other cities our size.
Then can we do that in two separate meetings?
I don't care.
Because
Yeah,
the
that's
first
fine.
meeting, you really need to understand the
Sure.
justifications and the employees and all that kind of thing. And the second one is, there can be different things, like streets. Maybe we cover with that streets revenue.
Does anybody else disagree with me? I don't want to be the one pushing
I think
this.
if we're going for a tax increase, then we do need some granular data as a city council.
Yes.
Some really good infographics that we can go out and just tell a
Do you
story.
disagree?
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Melissa?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And have we filed what we needed to file?
We don't have to do it until.
We had to let the county know that we had an intent to
We did
raise
do that.
taxes. And we
Okay.
did, right?
So let's prepare to do it. I think that we can't just pretend like it's going to fix itself. We're insufficient with revenue, and man, we hope that you're right with everything that the data centers can and possibly will do, and maybe this is a very temporary situation.
Yep.
But we can't continue to function like this.
Yeah.
Well, when we also really need to get
It's not good
our
management.
No.
communication and education and outreach figured out to be able to get this information to the people. But we can't do that until we have these two meetings.
Yes.
Because it will all kind of congeal together after we know the extent of what we're looking at.
I hope you understand I'm on your side.
I
I'm passionate about it, but the reality is I
We're all on the same
hate pretending like it's going to fix
Teenager
itself, because it's not.
This is how every
I hope
conversation
you
goes
saw
with me and
tonight,
Rich,
too,
every
was
time.
It's all good.
that there was no offense, because I'm sure what you saw tonight was my passion coming out.
That's okay. No,
Right?
Because we want to succeed.
I take zero
We're a team
offense.
and we're
Yeah.
talking, and that's what I mean. Like I've said that many times. I have a no offense policy, and it doesn't.
Kimberly, we need you to
We
be
need
successful. We need you to help us be successful.
So,
I think if we can look for other ways too, to not just property taxes, but other
Yeah, that's
areas where we can increase revenue.
It's like the tough. I mean, that's another one.
Yes.
So we can have those discussions, but there are other
And grow the
opportunities.
We just need to rip the Band-Aid off and get it done with.
and the reason we try to ask some of these priorities too is that they do all come with potentially different sources, but we're also trying to keep in mind it's the same resident who's going to be impacted with the rate increases we have to do.
Correct.
With the property tax increase that we need. If we throw on a
Still coming out of the same
utility
bucket,
transportation
right?
fee, right? These are all the same people
Yep.
that are being impacted by that. And
Could
so
we
part of
use-
this strategy is that there are things that we probably will still have to roll out over time.
Yeah.
And knowing where that focus needs to be, because we have limited staffing resources and a timeline, is that we want to make sure we're focusing in that area of, again, what are your most important things. And I know, again, we came at it from a very high level tonight,
with what.
35,000 feet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Full circle.
We need to descend together a little bit.
I'll be a passport dropout. Put yours on first. So then.
Is there anybody opposed to Jared doing the park manager so he knows where to go with this?
No, I think he heard that. But to get it put up here, that's
But I
fine.
think we need to keep Todd's position
Keep
as
our foot on the
something
gas.
separate.
Separate
Maybe that's
issues,
the
so
funding,
I think
but-
you understand what
Can I
everybody's
throw
saying.
one more thing out there?
Nope.
The advocate for property taxes, and I'm not a property tax, I'm not,
None of us are.
I'm conservative.
It's a very hard
You know,
pill
I'm
to
not-
swallow.
Ben, just so everybody knows, you're a resident of Eagle
I
Mountain
have to
City.
pay for it, but here's the difference, the one thing. Meta is our very first RDA, right? And Meta has.
Of the data center.
Okay.
Of the data centers.
Okay.
And Meta's data center pays no MET, right? They do pay property taxes.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
You raise property tax, it raises it on them too with the $1 billion investments of they have.
Can
Just
we
keep that in
can we
mind.
do a special property tax?
No, it's in the MDA that you cannot do that.
It's literally something that they bargained for in the agreement.
Yeah, not doing that.
I'll tell you, it's in the MDA. You can't do that.
They do pay the same rate as everybody else. So if we raise it for everybody, it raises for them too.
But hold on, to be clear, we don't get an MET on the first phase. I think phase 2, we get 35%?
And Evan has
The
all
second
those.
project area?
Yeah, anyway, so only the stuff that's been done for years. Their new phase they're building right now is
This is
absolutely, I think it's the same.
No incentives.
There's no incentives.
The
on
MET,
it.
the MET is
The only
equal to
difference
the
is
Rocky Mountain
yeah.
power contribution.
That's the only
Equivalency.
concession they got.
So Meta's already, essentially, QTS is our best MET. The second phase of Meta is only
Is
a year
exactly the
behind-
same.
Behind QTS.
Exactly the same as
So-
QTS.
18, we'll store data in July for QTS. By the following July of 2027, we'll also get an additional MET from the second phase of Facebook.
And we'll have
The
a
idea
power
that we
plant
talked about
function.
earlier, is it possible by policy to put something in place that once we reach a certain amount, that we start to level? Revenue goes up and we do incremental decrease in some of the things that we've raised temporarily?
You can set a policy and a goal and aspiration, and you can commit all that, but you just recognize that
Future
we're not
council.
finding a future.
We're asking for your help to do
Yep.
that.
Mhm.
Look, they have the ability to kill everything that
Right.
we've done.
Yeah.
But I think it at least establishes a good financial policy.
Yep.
And the residents can see that we're taking into consideration that our intent is for this to be temporary.
We should
That as the
publicize
revenues
that
go up, we
first.
want to bring the property
Eagle Mountain
taxes
plans
down
to decrease
by
property
policy.
taxes after they raise them by
So-
200.
So,
It's all in the messaging.
Anything else? Are you good?
yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was just getting, did we cover everything here on item 5, which is the annual budget?
We're
And-
good tonight. We had a lot of
and-
discussion.
And so wait, same with HR, we got through
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we've had plenty of time on that one. The last, there's another thing, item 6, the council planning. I was hoping we'd actually get to some of this. What I want to do, and I'm welcoming ideas, is email this list and prioritize it, because I don't think we'll get to it in our next meeting.
Perfect.
We haven't seemed to be able to get through a few items, let alone 12. So,
Do you want us to prioritize, and then if we think that
What
something
we should
should
do
be
is
on
look
there,
at
just
it
say, toss it?
And
Yes.
say what could hold.
yeah,
That way,
yes.
at least you have everybody
let's figure out,
saying that.
I mean, like the strategic plan, that's a 10-hour thing. Maybe the phone policy down there at the bottom is 15 minutes. So hopefully we can say, yes, I agree. Let's write a phone policy. So we can be effective in crossing off more items and then tackling some of the heavier ones as
So why
well.
don't you just hit that for a second and say, what do you mean by cell phone policy?
Are you guys? I'm trying to get you out of here. So
You don't have to be very, I mean, just be concise.
So yeah,
That's stupid.
As I
You're carrying
started
2
here,
phones. That's
the
dumb.
onboarding process and getting phones and stuff and whatnot, I said, and Brett's heard me say this on the listening tour, don't say stupid things, you don't have to worry about grandma requests. And look, we all say stupid things and we all own that, but at the same token, we are providing phones for lots of employees, I don't know the number, that will never get grandma requests. And instead of supplying a phone to give them a stipend to use their own phone, and the honest truth is that
We don't do that today?
No.
And I,
Well, the lawyer's probably always gonna get around to.
We're buying like brand new phones.
Nope, we're getting one.
They're like a few years.
Yeah, we
they're
get
not
them a
the current
diamond
one.
studded case.
Mayor, can I suggest that you just email us out and we kibosh it? It's 10:10. These guys have been here since who knows what time, and I
Midnight Tuesday.
you're in charge, and I don't want to kibosh it. But I think, in fairness to our employees and to our staff, let's call it, and then let's just pick it up
Will
later.
you just send what it is and what the proposal is with that? Then it's something for us to look at.
it's just an option to have two phones or one.
We're just in
if you're in a
so
risk
don't bring
position.
anything new.
If you're at risk, option to take two or
I should see myself out.
and now so we'll create a policy, but if that's what you want to do, then we'll just scratch that off the list and create a policy.
That one started.
So
We can do that internally. We can get it on an agenda.
So I'm gonna have Ben email this out over the weekend, and let's prioritize it and then get to Monday. I have one other thing. I scheduled a special meeting. I've talked to everybody through text or otherwise about the 25th. The staff is preparing
Is that the Wednesday?
the Wednesday. But what I didn't do, I kind of said we could go like 5 or 6 to 9 or 10, and I never said when are we starting.
Oh, I've been telling everybody it's exactly like it's a regular meeting, 4 p.m. to
Closing time.
Okay, that's what I.
25th.
Because it was kind of a special meeting, I didn't know if we'd identified
No.
that. So, and I told these guys.
We want to
that
start
were
where
different.
when we're still fresh.
So because it's a Wednesday, I know work obligations. Are we good at 4? Or does it need to be 5?
Hang on.
Because that's
No,
the question.
I'll just let them know that they got moved.
And if you're late to the work session, you're good. Melissa's.
I'll talk to my boss.
We have a quorum committed, so let's start at 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's important with this. Everybody may not be able to do everything. Get a quorum and move forward.
Is it possible to show up like 4:15?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can come.
Come when you come.
It's a work session,
Okay.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
I can do it. I
Well, and
just
you can listen to it as you're driving in.
I may or may not be able to be here right at 4, but I'll be pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
At least he's getting
The
sassy.
recorder over there. Okay.
She's fitting in the role, right?
All right. I'll be here at 4.
So, real quick, I'm ready to wrap this up, and I want to tell you, I think we had a robust conversation. I think we got through a lot, and I'm going to tell you, there's nobody I'd rather be in the trench than with all you guys. And
Yes.
Don't be making. All right.
so thank you for hanging with us. Thanks for being passionate and being respectful. I think that's what I want to know, is that at the end of the day, that we y'all are just trying to do our job, and that if we stay on one team, we'll get a lot done. So I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Special thanks to Kimberly, Terrence, Angela,
Yes,
and all
everyone.
the department heads who helped to get this.
So we
Yeah,
got a
Angela,
motion
give
by-
everybody the EAP number so they can get counseling.
Hey, quiet.
I got a recording still. I got a motion by Councilmember Wood and a second by Councilmember Whiting.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.